Hey, welcome everyone. Normal America Show. What am I wearing? Should I put the hood up? Should I put the hood up here? So do I look mysterious? Huh? Maybe go with this look. What do you think? How's that? Do I look lefty enough for you? Shit. What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Normal America Show. I'm wearing a ridiculous Snuggie thing. Whee! My wife, she got me this for when we're down. We made our basement sort of like a hangout room, and it gets a little chilly down there sometimes. And my son picked out one of these things. He's 3 years old, you know. And so, why doesn't mom and dad have one? So I just got off work, and my wife's like, well, we got something. Your son's very excited for us to try on. So here we are. We're trying it on. And I think that, it's a little embarrassing, but that's okay. I put a poll up, and I asked people on YouTube and on X if I should wear my Snuggie tonight. And people overwhelmingly said yes. And far be it from me to disappoint my audience. So now there were a couple people that were like, no, because we want you to like basically just bring the throttle down. Bring the throttle down on this guy. So we'll see. We'll see about that. Anyways, debates start in about 10 minutes. Sorry, I'm running a little behind. I got to be honest. Sometimes I feel like people are going to catch me on the right day. And today might be one of those. Because I am running on like no sleep because of stuff that occurred at work. And then, I don't know, I think I got a stomach bug. It's not something terrible. But I just feel like nauseous in my stomach. I've barely eaten for the past day. So don't get me wrong. I could afford to miss a meal or two. So I'm going to be all right. But, I always say that. I'm like, if I'm tired or something when I come upstream. But by the time we start the debate, adrenaline will kick in. We'll be all right. But yeah, being tired and then wearing this thing, I'm just like, by the end of the debate, I'm just going to be like, So tonight I'll be debating a gentleman by the name of Sage Outcast. Debate's going to start around 7 o'clock. The topic, it's pretty informal debate here tonight. The topic's just generally Kamala versus Trump. He can take that where he wants. Plan is we're not going to have a moderator. So the initial plan is hopefully we'll be able to have a debate that doesn't require a moderator. However, I'll discuss the rules with him as well, and he certainly has an opportunity to add anything that he would like. If either party feels that the other is talking over them too much or anything of that nature, either party can request a timer, and we have agreed that I will bring a timer onto the screen, and then there will be 2-minute intervals. One person speaks for 2 minutes uninterrupted, then the following person for 2 minutes uninterrupted. So that's the plan. I think that's about as fair as you could do without a moderator. So I didn't vote yet. I do plan on voting election day. I've taken the whole week off, so I should be fine. So that's the gist of what's going on here this evening. Tomorrow night I have a debate as well. I believe that's going to be a 2-on-2 debate on modern day debates, and it'll be the same topic, Kamala versus Trump. So now I'll wait until Sage gets here, and I'll say. So I don't know anything about Sage Outcast, hardly anything. I don't know. He may be excellent, so I'm trying not to prejudge. I think that, for me, one of the things I try to do is it doesn't matter how big someone's channel is or anything like that. I try to treat anyone who comes on this platform to debate. Call-ins are a little different, but someone who literally sets up a debate, the fairest thing I could do is treat them as an equal. So I always try, just like when I debated in college, to assume my opponent is going to be as gifted and as good as possible. So I'm hoping that it's a spirited debate. I hope it's a lot of fun, and I hope that he's ready to go. I think it'll be good. So I'm looking forward to it. Not trying to be rude or anything like that. I'm thankful for the opportunity. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart, because I know people that follow me on this channel know that I'm always asking for people to debate me. So enjoyed that he reached out. If you're curious, the way this occurred was a person by the name of Dean Withers. He's sort of getting big. He's a young kid that's a lefty that's been debating people. He put out that he would like to debate what conservative should he debate. And I threw my name in the hat, and I think I was the person that responded that had the most likes. Of course, he didn't get in touch with me or anything like that. That's fine, no biggie. But Sage Outcast said, I'll debate you. And I said, okie dokie. Oh, my goodness, we're gifting memberships already. Thanks so much, John Beer. It's really, really appreciate it. I'll have more to say. Obviously, your donations are very welcome. Two things I'll say just in general. When it comes to, I guess one thing, but two parts. When it comes to comments and it comes to donations, when I'm in the middle of the debate, I'm sadly going to miss 99% of those. Now, what I could do on YouTube is I could go back afterwards, anyone who donated on YouTube, and I'll be able to read those super chats after the debate. So I will get to those after the debate, I promise. But clearly, I'm not going to stop the flow of a debate. I'm trying to be fair to you all and to my opponent, to focus on the debate and not be distracted. So, and unfortunately, if you donate on Twitch or something, I'm unaware of how I could go back and look at who donated during the stream for that. So, just to give you a heads up on that. But I do really thank everyone who donates and says kind words. I really do. It means a lot to me. And as someone who is definitely trying to raise more money to put back into my channel, I really do appreciate it. And I am trying to do things I'll discuss with you all here at some point, maybe Friday morning. I'm going to do a Friday afternoon stream. I'll kind of discuss some of the things that's going on with my channel that I think are exciting. I think you guys are going to like it. So, and if you haven't noticed, I'm trying to put up a bunch of YouTube shorts and YouTube clipped videos every day. So keep checking YouTube out. At least every weekday, there's going to be content that's going up there. Usually that's before noon Eastern times and sometimes slightly afternoon. All right, that's about all there is to say. Let's see if we're ready to go. You're going to lose me visually here for a minute. Get my headset on. All right. For a minute.
Vinyl visually.
Hey, what's up? Oh. Wasn't ready. That's okay. Thank you to whoever followed, donated, whatever. 10 Goat. You're the best. Everyone else sucks. 10 Goat's the best. No, I'm just kidding. Thank you, though, 10 Goat. It means a lot, man. Thanks for the other things you said. Oh, thank you, whoever donated there right now. Someone, Galil Dowdy, thank you so much, man, for giving the donations. Just so you all aware, I am going to start doing... I peak too much, don't I? Is this volume okay? Can people let me know? Is that volume okay with you? I'm trying to eliminate some of the peaking. I am going to start doing at least some sort of members-only content. So that is going to happen at some point here. Let's see what's up. I moved him to the channel, and then who's this person in the waiting room? Nope. No. Only Sage today. We have a scheduled debate, so let's see if I can move him in now.
Cannot hear. Okay.
Sage, can you hear me?
I can hear you now. Do I join votes?
Yeah, you're good. You're in here with your audio. Did you want to put your camera on, or?
That's up to you. I can turn it on if you want. If I don't have to.
I'll just tell you, we're live streaming, just so you know, so keep the slurs to a minimum. But my policy is I always perceptually, I think it makes sense for the people watching my video to have an equal vision of each person, so your screen size is the same as mine, just in case that affects sort of how people interpret the arguments or things like that. But if you don't want to use your camera, I'm cool with that too. It'll just be a shot of me then.
Yeah, let's fire away. Put me on. I look good. I'm good looking. I got my liberal MAGA hat on. So
you got to turn your camera on. What'd you do? You laughed again. What are you doing, man? You keep leaving the channel here. You're leaving the.
I know what I'm doing.
There you go. All right. Sorry, I was going to say, I thought maybe you had a private conversation going on, and that's why you were leaving the channel.
No, I said join. It said join voice. So I'm like, what? What is going on here? I mean, make me sure that I'm not bigger than you. Actually, I should be bigger than you.
You go ahead. You did. Your screen is the same size as mine. I think the background really helps accentuate me. So
yeah, I did. I ended up stealing your background. No, so what I did was I noticed that today's video you do the interpretation of the liberal with their hat backwards. So what I chose to do just for some comfort for debating. I put a MAGA hat on and I put it on backwards. So
There you go. And then is that your real hair? Or are you wearing a wig over top of it there?
no, that's my Trump hair. I go to Trump. That's my Trump hair. That's my Trump hair. I'm
You go to you go to Trump rallies with that on?
No, I don't go to Trump rallies with it. I just wear it backwards just to confuse MAGA people because I'm a liberal, and then they get all confused.
Makes sense. So, all right, just to let you know, my son he likes this Snuggie thing, and he made me and my wife buy them, and I put a poll up, and people told me to wear it while I'm debating. So here you go. I'm wearing a Snuggie while I'm debating. But I could be a lefty, too. I could put this up and then put these glasses on and maybe an Afghan and look like your people or something if I want. But I thought the way to do this would briefly outline what we sort of agreed as the rules are, and then just jump in. Are you cool with that?
Yeah, I'm pretty good. I mean, you kind of covered them before. We're just kind of being like an open debate type topic thing, kind of less forum because we never met each other, so we first time interacting. So I'm cool with not having the mod, and I don't think we're gonna need 2 minutes because, like I said, I got no problem.
Okay. I got the timer ready if we need. Basically, just to let your audience know, I already told my audience, but topics basically in general, Trump versus Kamala. You can take it any direction you want. I don't care about that. I don't know if we discuss how long we plan to go. Around an hour, 2 hours.
Yeah, I mean, I'm good for the 2 hours if you want. I'm good for the hour. It's kind of it was up to you basically because you accepted the debate.
We'll shoot for 2 hours, and if we go over that, that's fine. But we'll shoot for at least 2 hours. I'm fine with that. If we've both agreed without a moderator, if either side decides that they would like a timer, then we've both agreed that we will play a 2-minute timer. The person will speak uninterrupted, and then the other person gets to speak for 2 minutes uninterrupted. That's how we'll go about that. And that's about it. I think we both implicitly understand because we have channels to keep it within terms of service. So
absolutely.
And then I thought maybe we could each do a somewhat opening statement. And then we could do a closing statement if at the end if you want, but that's up to you.
I didn't know if you wanted to know about me at all, or if you just want to jump into the debate.
Yeah, we could. That's actually fine. Yeah, absolutely. You could tell me and the audience a little about yourself. That's fine because this is the first time we've interacted, as far as I know. So
that way you kind of know where I'm coming from. So
sure.
My actual name is Sage. I have a YouTube channel named Sage Outcast. I'm in supply chain logistics. I own my own company. I have for over 20 years. I basically do a ton of research. I have interviewed people like She Van Fleet, Rebecca Koffler, who wrote Putin's Playbook, Jeff Nyquist, and stuff like that. I was doing a bunch of interviews. I've also I consult with think tanks in regards to logistics and supply chains, and I do a ton of research. And basically, got diving into some of the truther QAnon. I know I'm sorry to bring that up. Mostly aspect of bringing. Basically, I just kind of cover a lot of fake news and disinformation and a lot of correction in regards to that. Also, I am... Oh, hang on. Let me push my button so you don't get confused. According to everybody, I am a liberal. So I thought I'd throw that on screen. Just might make sure I typed it out so you're fully aware. But that's basically... That's basically me in a nutshell. I'm going to be voting for Harris. I did vote Trump. I originally... the first time, but this time after doing a continuing research and a lot of different aspects of things, I can't do it again. That's kind of it.
Let me, just real quick, something personal. You don't have to answer. Do you have your CDL?
I do have a CDL.
I thought I heard you. Yeah, my father-in-law that was just here, he's a truck driver. So I used to drive escort car occasionally for him. He drives oversized loads. So a lot of truckers I know, great guys. But
what I specialize in is over-dimensional freight now.
Oh, so yeah?
All I move is over-dimensional freight, 20 foot tall, 20 foot wide.
Yeah.
My company's actually under a couple of Defense Production Acts in regards to rare earth mineral mines and the, it's Korea, but it's the Samsung.
You like those lefty regulations, state to state, that it's hassling you up? Huh?
I'll tell you what, the big part about this, because I've been doing it for over 20 years, I like them because I know what I'm doing, so I get paid a lot of money to be able to know what I'm doing. Mess it all up, and then they bring me
keeping the little man down. All right, we'll jump in here. I do want to say before we start, you can correct the record. Someone told me they saw on your show that you said that you were going to school me. Is that true?
Cool.
You're going to school. I like the confidence. Sounds good. Maybe you will. That'll be great. I love learning. So, did you want to just jump in, or do you want to do opening statements? I'm cool either way.
Yeah. However you want to do it. Like I said, it was your call, your show, your call, and I'll respect that.
Okay. Sure, we'll do an opening statement. I'm clearly voting for Trump. You're clearly voting for Kamala. So, you want me to go first or second? You know, normally the way it goes, whoever goes first will get to go last at the end of the debate. So you pick. You want to go first, or first for the close?
You can go.
Okay, I'll go first. Then I'll go last with closing. All right, here we go. So I haven't written anything down, but in general, this is what's going on. The election between Trump and Kamala is actually an easy thing to decide because we have the records that they have. And when we look at those records, we can see when it comes to domestic policy, foreign policy, and sort of issues of corruption and things like that, we can see that the record of Donald Trump is better than the record of Kamala Harris. She has been one of the last people in the room in all of these decisions with Joe Biden. She has been said by Biden to be someone that he appreciated, that was one of the smartest people helping him with these policies. She's admitted herself that she couldn't think of anything she would have done differently. And so despite the gaslighting we've heard from Democrats and their media apparatchik for years, it turns out that the economy's not humming along. It turns out the American people don't think the border's secure. It turns out that foreign policy is a disaster compared to what it was during Donald Trump. And so what the Democrats will do is rely on the fact that they'll try to talk terribly of Trump's character. As we can see, Kamala's closing statement's going to be Trump's basically Hitler. And so they'll shout about things like January 6th, and they'll shout about things about how he's a threat to democracy, when in reality, they represent an establishment that's worse on almost all of those things than Donald Trump. But that's what this debate will be. I'll try to focus on the records, and we will see that it's going to Trump's character over and over again, as opposed to focus on those records. Or we'll see that, no, Kamala, despite the fact that we've been gaslit about how great Biden's country has been, and he's one of the greatest countries ever, no, Kamala's not responsible for the records that we see of that, because they intuitively know the American people aren't happy with the direction that the country's going. And so she would have done something different, but it's not going to be the different stuff that she promised to do in 2020 when she said she was all for this Green New Deal, banning fracking, trans surgeries for inmates, etc. It'll be something else, which Kamala hasn't told us. Kamala Harris represents just an empty suit. She doesn't have positions herself. She's not very talented, whether it be through charisma or through an understanding of policy. Instead, she represents exactly what Joe Biden represents, which is a placeholder that people behind the scenes will be able to run the country from behind the shadows. Those people for years haven't cared about the people of this country, particularly in areas like where I live in rural Pennsylvania. They care about the elites and enriching themselves, and that's why they've used so much lawfare and so much corruption to go after people like Donald Trump or people that are outsiders. And before you say, but that's because Trump's exclusively bad, just know that in Michigan right now, Kamala's associates are actually running ads against Jill Stein, accusing her of being too friendly with Vladimir Putin. These are the sorts of attacks they'll make on anyone that they see as a threat to the establishment. Chuck Schumer told us the mere fact that Donald Trump suggested going after the intel agencies for some of the things they were doing would make him a target 6 ways from Sunday that they would get back him. And that's what we've seen ever since. And so this election comes down to something quite simple. Are you better off now? Can you afford groceries? Is the border better? Is the world more secure? The answer to all of those things is no. Despite the threats of Donald Trump being this dictator he wasn't when he was there, the country was going quite well, and people were doing better off in the aggregate in this country. All of the attacks, whether it be legal or illegal, corrupt or non-corrupt, that have occurred against Trump are designed to take away from that fact and try to make you think that he is some remarkably evil man, which is a reason alone to reject him.
Cool. Good?
Yep.
All right. I'm not going to need to be that long because obviously Harris is the right pick, so we can just make this real easy. So basically, I am going to be a Harris supporter. I believe that Harris is a better position for president. If you were to look at what the reasoning is that you pick a president, what the job actually is of a president, I believe it's more of a Harris than a makings of a dictator. I do believe Trump it has the makings of a dictator. I'm not saying that he is a dictator in a dictatorship or he wants to do that. I do believe that the country has preventions for that. But in regards to makings of a dictator, I believe he does have one. I believe most of the information that you get out there is and in regards to the conspiracies and things like that is based on lack of understanding of how the system works, both in lots of things Donald Trump are saying and the information that he's putting out when he spews his rhetoric, and even the fact that we do have both of their somewhat of their policies and what they're going to do. Donald Trump's record as president isn't as good as what you think when you actually understand how he did things and what he did. And we do not have Harris's complete record because she was a vice president and didn't have veto power. This is something that she's going to have to prove herself as she brings that forward, which she has on her page, and she goes through the policies that she's going to bring. It's going to be easy to understand who the better pick is once you understand the reasoning why things are happening and the actual facts in regards. Like I said, unfortunately, when we don't understand something, we see it to be a conspiracy. So I'm going to be here to make sure that when things are confusing or you don't understand them, I can break them down and bring them to where you can understand them and make the correct pick. Harris.
Okay. All right. So we're good to go. We'll just go with general conversation. Again, if either of us think that it's going, someone's talking too long, interrupting, either of us could bring up the timer and we'll go like that. So hopefully we don't require it, but good to go with open conversation. So if you don't mind, I'll start. I wouldn't mind asking you. You said that we don't know about the policies of Harris necessarily. We know some, but necessarily not because she's only been VP. Can you name me what she would have done differently than Joe Biden?
Well, what she would have done, what she's putting out there right now is what she would have done. So obviously they're putting out different policies that have changed. Like when we look at the immigration policy, I do believe some of the policies that are moving forward now would be hers. The ones that are on her platform that are being posted on our website would be her policies. So some of the policies that they're putting out, let's say tariffs, I don't believe that would have been, that's Joe's policy. I believe that's more of a newer policy that they're shooting for in regards to tariffs. And I do believe that when it comes to the finances they're putting out for first house buying and things like that, those are some of her policies.
Okay, so there are policies that you think she would have added, but my question is, which would she have done differently at the time than Joe Biden? Now, you give an interesting deflection and say she's talking about things now. There's two ways to look at this. Oftentimes what you see is politicians in an election year make a bunch of promises that they're unable or unintended to keep. And so it's easy for someone who didn't care about the border, for example, for 3.5 years to all of a sudden in an election year where they know that's an issue to say, oh, actually, I have policies on the border. My question is, if she's running as a candidate of change, what would have been different? And you give an interesting argument. My follow-up question to you is, why does Kamala Harris disagree with you? Because when she was asked point blank what she would have done different than Biden, she said she couldn't have thought of anything. Who's right, you or her?
Well, I'm always right, so I don't know what that is. So in regards to one of the questions that she did answer, in regards to that, what could she have done differently? What power did she have to make a difference in those decisions that were made?
That's not the question. The question is, if you were president, that's what the question is. What would you have done differently? Saying, well, I wasn't president, so I couldn't do anything different, is not an answer to that question. The question she asked was very specific, and her answer was very specific. She could not think, if she was president, of one thing she would have done differently than Joe Biden.
Correct. But those aren't the policies that will be going forward. Correct. The policies that she made were the policies that were in play during the situation that she was in with COVID. The policies that they were making were the right policies. Can you tell me some of the policies that you believe were wrong?
Yes, the vaccine mandate, things that were embracing things like lockdowns, allowing schools to be closed, forcing schools to be closed much longer than they should. Nonetheless, it's still a deflection. I understand that you're answering the question sort of with the question, and certainly you'll get a chance to steer the direction of the debate and ask me questions. That's absolutely fair. But what I'm pointing out is there's this clever trick that tries to come for people that are defending Kamala where they say she's the candidate of change, and you're like, oh, okay, because she wants all of these policies she advocated for in 2020. So she's actually against fracking. She's actually for more Green New Deal. She's for all of this stuff. No, not that. That's not the change. Okay, then what would she have done differently than Joe Biden? Well, she personally says, well, nothing that I could think of. And then you sort of are doing some smoke and mirror trick here where you're like, well, she's advocating policies now. Yes, but that gets to the fact that she's not the candidate of change. Why didn't they do these policies? If she would have governed exactly as Joe Biden and can't think of something she would have done differently, then it would be tantamount to Joe Biden still running. And you ask the question, seeing as how you wouldn't have done anything different, Joe Biden says you were one of the people instrumental in forming the policies. You've alluded to the fact that you're one of the people informing the policies. Then why didn't she do these amazing plans, such as doing things on the border, that she's now suggesting she'll do as president? It seems to me that this is pure pandering, that she's claiming to talk about these issues now because it's an election year, and that she had the capability, along with Joe Biden, to try to deal with these things for 4 years and chose not to do it, even with 2 years of a Democratic House and Senate.
You're familiar with COVID, right?
I am familiar with COVID, yes.
So the policies that were in place that she was backing that she could not have changed as the vice president were policies to deal with the COVID situation, correct? So right now, policy...
No, that's not true. There were certain policies that the Biden administration, the Harris-Biden administration dealt with COVID. There were a litany of other policies, right? You can't say. Well, they had to. Let me. Maybe there's. Maybe it's too. Real quick. Maybe it's two ships passing. Let me ask you. Is what you're suggesting? They literally could only make the decisions they did because of COVID. Is that what you're suggesting?
No, what decisions would you looked at? What would you like for them to make when COVID was hitting when he was coming in? Would you have liked him to start to make other ones, or would you like him to start with the COVID situation?
I would have not done. That's a great question. That's actually interesting. Okay. And so what you're implying is that their central focus was on COVID early in the administration.
Well, that's when they came in, what the COVID was happening, correct? Okay. Because you brought up a couple topics in regards to the vaccines, in regards to the closures taking too long. Do you know why these things happened? Do you know why? I do. And answer that question. Why were things closed for an extended period of time?
Because they are authoritarians that wanted to have more control, like socialists. That is what happened. It was the wrong decision that they made, and it was even wrong when things like that occurred under Trump.
Well, wrong.
I'm not wrong.
Would you like me to correct you on that fact? Because I can.
You could try to say what you want, and then we'll address it.
How familiar are you with the logistical bullwhip effect?
I don't know what that term means.
Okay, perfect. Where do you believe inflation came from?
From locking down a global economy. That's exactly where it came from.
No, it didn't come from.
Yes, it did.
Let me explain to you. I'm going to need a little bit of time to explain it to you. But
you go right ahead. But I just want to say briefly, if your argument, just to talk on the point where I'm no problem, we can talk for 2 hours on COVID. Why, if COVID was such an important thing and that's what they were focused on centrally, why literally some of the first days in office did they rescind Trump's executive orders on the border? Shouldn't they have been focused real quick? Shouldn't they have been focused solely on COVID? One, and second, wasn't letting more people in, many of which we know weren't tested for COVID, actually making things worse for COVID?
Okay, so which one do you want me to explain first? Because I can explain all of them.
I'm sure you think you can. Go ahead with one, then two, and then you can talk to me about this inflation.
One inflation, or do you want one to be the COVID? Okay, so in regard...
Wait. I mean, if it seems we're on this point because you're suggesting, look, at the beginning, all they could do was deal with COVID, to which my counter argument is that's not the first thing they did. The first thing they did was rescinded border orders, which actually makes COVID worse. How do you explain that?
You blanketed all they can do. I didn't say that's all they can do.
Okay,
right?
Well then what's the point of your argument? When I say what would Kamala have done differently, and your argument is, well, COVID was occurring, that's what their focus needed to be, it seems that you're making that argument to suggest that the policies that the Harris-Biden administration had on a litany of issues were basically locked in because of their dealing with COVID.
So do you believe that when they came into office, that if the COVID wouldn't have been there, their focal point would have been on the same thing that they were dealing with when COVID was there?
No, and I think if their focal point was going to be on COVID because it was so serious, then one of the first things they should have done was not focus on rescinding the executive orders on the border to allow people to come in, not just because it was a disaster for immigration policy, but also because it was a disaster for COVID policy because many of these people weren't tested.
Okay, so let's start with one at a time.
Okay,
perfect. So I'm going to start with the COVID situation in regards to inflation. Is that cool with that? And
I suppose, I guess we'll table back. It's sort of moving away from your central argument that they had to deal with COVID first. Can you just address why they rescinded those executive orders if their focus was so important on COVID? Can you address that? And then I promise you can have all the time you want to talk about inflation.
Okay. I wanted to set up context, but if you want to go directly to response, some of the orders that they rescinded in regards to immigration was also for the fact that you do understand that Mexico is not a safe haven for people to come. You understand that Trump built a dam by making people stay in Mexico. The crime went up in Mexico right during Trump's damming of the people that were coming. Basically, what caused immigration to come was Harris's job to look into. One of the things that you can obviously see was Venezuela. Sanctions on Venezuela caused the migration. He was told numerous times by the Department of Homeland Security that if you sanction Venezuela, the last full day in office, you are fully aware that he sanctioned Venezuela and allowed 150,000 to 200,000 Venezuelans temporary stay here. You're aware of that, right?
I didn't know the specifics. I was aware that he put sanctions on Venezuela. I'm also aware that this is a complete non-answer because your answer now, when you were directing to it, your first claim seemed to be something to do with the fact that the policies of Harris-Biden were locked in because of COVID, and that's what we wanted them to be their focus. And then when I mentioned, well, one of the first things, let me finish. When I mentioned please, let me finish. I let you talk unimpeded. When I mentioned that one of the first things they did was rescind these executive orders, which one proves that their focus didn't seem to be first and foremost on COVID. and second, it actually made things worse with COVID, your response is, yeah, but that's because there was crime occurring in Mexico. So again, they had a focus that wasn't COVID, and they were focused more on sort of the crime landscape of Mexico, is your argument?
You want context, or you just want yes or no's? Yes.
You're giving the context, and I'm criticizing the context. Do you want me to criticize your context, or just speak in yes and no's?
No, what I'm trying to do is give you context of the reasoning and why they basically started to establish that, hey, we have to drop these. Mexico was pushing back on the fact that they were not going to keep all these people there because they were also going through COVID, right? So there was pushback on them trying to deal with these people, let alone us trying to deal with these people.
Then they could have secured their southern border and made sure that they stopped them there instead of the United States having to take people that weren't tested for COVID and have a disastrous immigration system in our country.
Rob, do you realize I don't interrupt you?
You did somewhat, and okay.
Do you
think that was a grotesque interruption?
Yeah, because I was in the middle of continuing to speak.
Okay, go.
Fair? Okay. So what I tried to explain is that was one of the situations they were also dealing with. They were also getting pushback on Mexico and creating a dam. Trump creating a dam. People were still coming up and going to Mexico and sitting there and staying in Mexico. So now you had sick people in Mexico that were also going through the COVID situation. So at that point, you have to figure out how do we handle these people? Is it better for us to handle these people? Is it better for Mexico to handle these people? So at that point, we're also checking people in to do this thing. COVID was like a meteor that hit the planet. How to properly handle it completely was, a difficult thing to process. And they were doing this the best they possibly could. Now, that's the COVID thing. Now,
I would like to respond since you talked about that. So notice that there's an admission here that it wasn't for the benefit of the people of the United States that the Biden administration and Harris were concerned about. Instead, they were more concerned about people around the world. And so notice how I don't interrupt you. Thank you.
Actually,
thank you. All right. Thanks. Fair enough. Okay. Good. Now, notice what he says here is that there was a bunch of crime and there was a bunch of illness for these people in Mexico. So at a time where we were locking down children and punishing children in this country, which the Biden-Harris administration was doing, we agreed to take in people that we knew were riddled with crime. Are you talking over me, or are you talking to your own audience while I'm talking?
Yes. You what children
you're interrupting me? You're interrupting me again? Is that what you're doing? Are you interrupting? Are you interrupting? Excuse me, are you interrupting? Did we not agree we weren't going to interrupt? Is that what you're doing? You'll have a chance to respond to me when I'm done talking. Fair enough?
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. Right. So
we punished.
We locked down children to protect adults. There was no evidence that suggested locking down schools was effective for children. Children were some of the least at risk to contract COVID. When they were at schools, the chances of them getting COVID was less than their chances of getting it at home. So we punished children so that teachers unions could feel good. And it was one of the most disastrous things we did. Children are still suffering with things like chronic illnesses of children going out, lack of education opportunities that occurred, malnutrition that occurred, abuse against children that no longer had that support network of being into schools where people could check up on them. They suffered mightily. Meanwhile, while we were saying that those children had to suffer and sacrifice because COVID was so bad, what you're admitting is there were all these people that were engaged, whether they did it or it was just occurring around them, with crime, and COVID was spreading through them. And so Harris and Biden, as one of their first acts, said, let these people in. And so no matter how you spin this, you could try to spin the argument, oh, they did it because they have a big heart. What this is an admission that their priority wasn't the American people, and instead they intentionally let people in. And so later when you say, oh, it's not their fault, the border crisis isn't their fault, yes, you're already admitting that they intentionally let mass amounts of people in that they knew COVID was running rampant through, that they knew there was crime running rampant through these communities, at the same time that they were locking down children and other people in this country.
My turn?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So we're gonna back up and explain to you why companies were shut down. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So when COVID first started, it started in basically China, right? Now, what China did was start what we call logistical bullwhip effect. That logistical bullwhip effect is they shut down, which caused us to then do what? Basically break the system. So freight brokers, logistical people, logistics, we know what you're going to get before you know what you're going to get. We base it on consistency. So when we order, at that time, we had 60% of the goods were coming from China. They were coming in containers. We would ship the containers. We would ship it here to the United States, unload it in West Coast, ship it all the way over the East Coast up and down. That's a hub system that we use, Spoken Hub. Well, the problem is that when COVID first hit, that when that system got broke, everybody went out and panic bought, and they went out and they bought these goods. So the price that basically from the shutdown to the startup again, when they did it, you have to understand how this works. So when freight comes from China, it goes onto a ship. gets offloaded in a port in Long Beach. From Long Beach, it gets railed or trucked, right? Now, from there, what happened? How did they respond to that? How did the Trump administration respond to this situation? They did 5 out of 6 COVID bills where they inserted $8.8 trillion into the economy. They told people they could stay home, get an extra $600 on top of the $400 they were probably getting from unemployment. People had more money than what they do with. They also basically got to a point where they said, you know what? All these ships that are coming in here, we had in 2015 a report came out that said that we had the worst. Long Beach, Longshore had the worst efficiency in regards to the ports. So when we were getting 60% of the goods coming from China to the ports, we had no means of being able to keep up with this. They were fully aware of this. The report came out in 2015. Trump was president from 2016 on to 2020, so he was fully aware of this. So what happens when you insert money into an economy that people have never seen before in their entire lives while shutting down? They went and they bought things. They bought lots of things. They bought all kinds of things. They spent money on computers, electronics, computer chairs, cameras, videos, all kinds of stuff so that they could stay home. Their kids were also staying home, needing computers and stuff like that. They were converting from basically going to their job and from working from home. So they spent a lot of money. When you give a lot of money and you insert a lot of money, you cause supply and demand. Well, you cause the price of goods to go up. Now, containers from China to the United States cost how much? Do you know?
I don't.
They normally cost about $2,000 for a 20-foot container. That price went from $2,000 for a 20-foot container to $20,000 for a 20-foot container. So what happened was everybody and their brother that could possibly ship a container was out there paddling containers across the ocean if they possibly could. So when those things hit the ports, we filled our ports up with 100 ships, all having anywhere from 10,000 to 20,000 containers. So now we got to get those ports. But you know what we also did? The problem was with some of Trump's tariff deals was screwing us up.
Listen, you got like 30 more seconds. I can't let you talk for 20 minutes, but go ahead.
You talked for 20 minutes.
I didn't. You're talking at a longer chunk than I did.
Now what happens is now you have this stuff and you have to get these out of the ports. The problem was these ports are filling up because of bad tariff deals that Trump was having. China was not taking soybeans back. We had to bail the farmers out $28 billion. Why? Because they wouldn't take this. So then what happened? Now we got all these ships in the ports and then all these containers that have to leave the ports. So you know how much it costs to ship freight from approximately California to Texas?
I do not.
About $2. Now the price went up to $8 a mile.
You done? You done?
Yeah. Not even close.
Okay.
So then
I'll tell you what. I'm going to have to bring out the timer. I'm not going to let you sit here and talk for 20 minutes. That's what's going to have to happen. What's that?
You just.
I did not talk the length you are. Right? First off, what you're saying is a gross oversimplification. Oftentimes what happens is someone who has one area, for example, if I was talking to someone here in the timber business, they would be able to talk to me about the specific price and importation of the things necessary for the timber business and be able to make bolstering claims as how that affected the whole economy. One of the things you're doing is you're conveniently leaving out many of the things that occurred within this. For example, you talk about the massive spending that was occurring and the sort of lockdowns and things like that had occurred. While it is true that there's blame to be placed on Republicans and Donald Trump for things like spending, we know for a fact that at the exact time that those spending bills were occurring, the Democrats actually wanted to spend far more and send larger stimulus checks and increase more money into circulation. In fact, can you tell me where did these spending bills come from? Congress?
Yes.
Who controlled the House and the Senate during COVID?
Who controlled the House and the Senate? COVID?
During COVID, yeah.
Technically Trump. He didn't veto any.
Trump did. So Trump was the one that was writing these bills. That's your argument?
Did he veto any?
He didn't, but that's not to say the fact that's an absurd. So I just want to be clear. So your argument right now would be that Joe Biden currently controls the House. Why? You said that he controlled that the president, unless he vetoed a bill, if he signs a bill, he controls the House. That's what you said.
You give me a chance to answer the question or no?
We'll give you like 15 seconds to give a brief answer, sure.
Oh.
Well, I'm not going to give you, after you ramble on for 5 minutes, I'm not going to give you another 5 minutes to ramble on. Your argument, correct me if I'm wrong, is Trump controlled the House because he didn't veto a bill.
Oh, he actually asked for more money. So the answer would be that when the bills came across, he didn't veto them, did he?
He did not. That does not mean he controlled Congress. Did the Democrats want more spending?
Trump wanted more spending.
Did the Democrats want more spending?
I remember Trump asking for more spending.
Did the Democrats want more spending? So you're saying you don't know?
I don't know the answer
They
to that.
did.
No.
In fact, they negotiated with Republicans who whittled them down, and it was a compromise bill, which you're right was a disaster. Now, the irony is there's a lot of areas of agreement here that I actually think that the mass inflation partly became from the lockdowns and partly became from the fact that we were spending money hand over fist. The problem is the Democrats wanted to do that even worse. Also, you are ignoring the part that the lockdowns also contributed to this. So you talk about people who are at home. That is completely true. That is completely true. What you're trying to simplify is because so much of stuff is imported from China that caused this supply chain crunch at that level, which caused then we sent people money. But the truth is that there are other levels that come with that chain. It's not just as simple as everything at the base level is imported from China and all work then contributes from there. There are stages of things that are manufactured in the United States that other businesses in the United States need that manufactured stuff that was occurred in the United States. So locking down there actually caused problems and supply chain issues as well that would make things more tight, which would cause the prices of products to be higher as well because there were less things going in that nature. In addition, we can see that things like locking down caused all sorts of other financial problems with people that made it necessary in the people's eyes, including Trump and the Democrats and the Republicans, to send them things like stimulus checks and to inject more money because they had to survive in a time where they were unable to get an income because they were considered non-essential. And so, for example, you had other things like this would occur. Even the essential businesses that were allowed to occur because kids weren't allowed to go to school. Many families then had to provide for childcare because their kids were locked down, unable to go to school. Their work situation is such that on a normal time, they go to work and their kids go to school. Now you have to have some sort of babysitter or you can't go to work. So you're in the shipping business. Where I lived, there were a lot of mobile home factories that ship out these oversized loads, right? Many of them had to close down even if they weren't forced to because so many parents that worked there were unable to come to work because schools were locked down or other places were locked down where their school children would go. So you're having a gross oversimplification and you're talking at a rapid pace, which is totally fine because I talk at a rapid pace as well. But you're trying to use your sort of job and something that you know about specifically with your job to make it seem like this is this all-encompassing, this is what it all was because of this backup at the port because China had to lock down because of COVID and Trump had some sort of tariffs. That explains it all. And that's gross oversimplification and it's also stupid and ignores many things. The truth of the matter is that the idea in general of lockdowns and the massive money printing is largely what's responsible for inflation. There is absolutely criticism to be given to Trump and to Republicans, but the Democrats wanted to do it worse and continue to do it worse when they controlled the presidency, the House, and the Senate when Biden took over.
You good?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right, so let me continue on with what I was saying because you cut me off in the middle, then you fill in the void of the stuff that you cut me off at. So when I try to explain stuff, you cut me off. So it's not simplifying. I'm making sure that you understand what's going on. So
I don't because you're just real quick. No one understands what you're saying because you're just talking really rapid in a way that's not explaining anything.
I'm actually explaining it. Like,
you're not.
There's no.
You want me to ask the audience? Does anyone understand? Do you think I could bring one person on from my audience that could repeat the gist of what you're trying to say?
I don't know.
Could one in your audience? I'm sure you've said this same spiel many times before. Could one person in your audience do it?
Yes.
Okay, bring them on.
You want me to bring somebody on to explain it?
Someone that feels that you have sufficiently explained the things you're talking about. Because I feel like what you're doing is going through a pre-speech.
How do you want me to bring him on? How do you want me to bring him on?
Here, tell him to join my channel. Then come on.
I'm trying. My problem is I wasn't even done with the lockdowns. Do you realize that there is a goods and services volume in logistics?
Yes, I do. Do you understand? Do you understand the counter? Did you understand the counter thriftity when it comes to actually people that are printing this money at the Fed? You understand the concept of counter thriftity, correct?
No, when I'm asking if you understand.
No, but I'm asking you in a counter. I'm admitting I don't. But clearly you understand the most basic concept of counter thriftity. Yes or no? I'm just asking you. I understand you have this area of expertise, but what I'm saying is, do you understand the basic concept when it comes to Fed printing of counter thriftity?
Why don't you answer my question first?
I said no. I answered your question. Now I'm saying, but what you're overlooking is the obvious concept of counter thriftity at the Fed. Do you understand anything about it?
Rob, here's what I'm not going to do.
Why can't you answer the question?
Because you won't allow me to say any of my points. And the minute I start to talk over the top. So what I'm trying
you can absolutely explain your points. I'm just asking you a simple question. You asked me a yes, no. I answered quickly and then asked you a yes, no.
Yes.
You do understand.
literally just tried to explain to you something, and then you talked for 5 minutes, and then when you stopped talking, I tried to talk again, and you cut me off.
I simple yes, no. You said yes. You understand the concept of counter thriftity. I'm just trying to get a baseline. I made that term up. I just made that term up. You fucking idiot. I just made up the term counter thrifty, and you told me you understand the concept.
Rob, I just said yes because I didn't give a shit.
So you're not engaged in a good faith conversation.
Yes, because at some point you got to let me talk, Rob. You going to let me talk?
I will let you talk. I just want everyone to know he understands the concepts of counter thrifty, which is a made-up term. Go ahead. Go with your expertise here.
No, yes, no, didn't care. Because you go on for 5 minutes and you don't let me finish. So there are a goods and service based in volume, right? One of the reasons that we shut down is because we were moving from a goods purchasing volume to a service volume, correct?
I don't know.
Okay, service volume is food. Goods is purchasing. So for Christmas, you buy a lot of goods. Okay. That's what we do in December and January and February. Come February, March, and April, we start to roll into a service-based industry. Service industry is produce, food, things like that. So one of the problems we were going to have if we opened up schools, restaurants, bars, and things like that, we could have been shut down because we didn't have enough capacity, meaning trucks, to be able to not stop for food shortages. Hang on, I got a drink.
Counter thrifty got you thirsty there.
Yeah, I just said yes because you wouldn't shut the fuck up.
You said yes because you're full of shit and you're bad faith. Keep going, though.
No, I'm not bad faith, but you won't let me finish, Rob. At what point do you let me finish?
I'm sitting here. You just pause to take a drink. Keep going, man. I know you want to go on a 30-minute thing that says, I know all about, you see the goods, there were food and the tariffs and the ports, and I do. Do you know what this term means? Do you know? Oh, you don't know what that means. Well, then, yes, you want to talk like that for 30 minutes. I'm giving you large chunks to go ahead with your spiel. We get it. Keep going.
Okay. So basically, if we were to do the same thing that we were doing for goods, we were running out of goods. We were shortage of toilet paper, short of different types of goods. China was opening up and closing down. So when we had to shut down schools, restaurants, and stuff because of food waste, the last thing we wanted to do would be run out of food or bring the illusion of running out of food, because you don't need people to go out and basically panic buy food and bring in shortages. That would bring panic to the entire United States, correct? So one of the things we had to do was stay shut down in some areas to prevent this from happening. Go ahead.
So we had to, let me just clarify. I'm trying to understand you. Your argument is we had to shut down certain types of business, say an auto dealership, because the trucks that would have been necessary to bring the materials for a business like that instead needed to be all in on shipping food.
Some of the automotive dealerships that were shut down because of chip parts. You know that, right? Semiconductor
But
parts.
I'm just saying, in general, what you're saying is there were businesses that we deemed non-essential. And one of the reasons we had to shut them down was because all of our trucks needed to be delivering food.
No, not all of our trucks had to be delivering food. It was a capacity issue in regards to a service-based industry. Food waste is mostly done through restaurants, schools, church bazaars, picnics, amusement parks, all that, right? Most of our trucks at that time were still delivering goods. So one of the last things you want to do is open up fully when we don't have the means to provide all of the trucks, to provide all of everything.
But that's what I'm getting at. I'm trying to simplify this so someone who's not in the transportation business can understand it. So I'm just asking good faith questions. It seems what you're suggesting is we had this service-based economy, right? And then we were transitioning to a goods-based economy.
No. Goods to service. Goods to service.
So we had a goods-based economy. So
correct. Christmas would be goods. Okay. Items you would buy.
Okay, so I'm seriously trying to be good faith and talk about this, right? So what you're saying is at some point early in COVID, we were a goods-based economy.
Correct.
So let's say April, May. Christmas.
So you have Christmas, January, February, March, then you go to service.
Okay, so goods you're talking about like not food and stuff. Service you're talking more food, etc.
Correct. Seasons, things.
Okay, so first it was goods in December. What about before December? That's when the majority of lockdowns and things were occurring.
You're still running into the end of the school year, which would be service/goods. Service, goods, service.
So, okay. So then it's service until December.
No, somewhere around after Thanksgiving.
Okay, so it's service till late in November.
Correct.
Okay, so the argument
And because we could not get goods to sell because China was closed. You're familiar with that,
okay,
right?
Okay, all right. So this is the argument. So we have service economy. That's like restaurants, food, stuff like that. Then we come to November. We've already had lockdowns.
I'm not arguing the original lockdowns in regards to us locking down. I'm talking the extended lockdowns that rolled on further down the road.
So the argument is your criticism of Trump is starting like in November. You're not even talking pre-November.
No, I'm explaining to you the lockdown situation because you keep bringing up the extended lockdowns as what caused inflation. I'm explaining the purpose of the extended lockdowns.
So you're saying you're defending the Harris-Biden lockdowns is what you're saying.
I'm defending aspects of the lockdowns.
So
what you said what you said were the extended lockdowns.
There were extended lockdowns, and so I will continue. So I'll continue. I will continue with my questioning on this your area of expertise, and then we'll get into it, and then we can talk about counter thriftity, which clearly you have quite the expertise in. Nonetheless, it's sad. You know what you did. It's sad. Anyways, so the argument is we have this. Let me ask you another question. Was that out of the ordinary that we had a service-based economy going into November, then it switched to goods?
No, COVID was out of the ordinary.
What's that?
COVID was out of the ordinary.
No, I understand that. But in a normal year, would you argue that that's sort of the pattern of going until we have serviced economy until after Thanksgiving, and then it's goods until after Christmas, and then it's back to service? That's normally how it goes as well?
Correct.
Okay, because I'm just trying to understand. That's all I'm doing. So then the argument is it was the same this year as far as the order of service, goods, service, because it becomes goods basically around Christmas because people are buying toys and gifts and things like that. Is that fair?
Correct, except for yes.
Okay, so the argument then is we had these lockdowns previously, so we have this service economy and things are locked down and there's this bottleneck that's occurring at the ports because of policies in China and what have. Then we go into the goods-based economy when it's coming around Christmas. Now it's...
Okay, I'm just trying to figure this out because you're, again, controlling the conversation to the point that you're going. So I'm just trying to basically establish how long do you want to go? Because when you say you allow me to talk, I'm going to say I'm allowing you to talk for an extended period of time. So I'm waiting for you to finish up here.
I'm trying to engage in good faith. I'm trying to engage in good faith in what you're outlining as your reasoning that we had lockdowns. I'm literally asking you to explain the situation. That's what I'm doing.
No, you're not. You're interrogating me.
All right. Well, then what we're going to do, I was trying to figure it out, but since you're unwilling to do that and you don't want me to respond, then I'll go with this. I'll be brief about it. Notice how none of this has anything to do with the specifics I talked about why they did all of these other policies that occurred when he tried to say, well, it was because of COVID, why they had to do it. He still hasn't addressed the fact that they lifted these executive orders, which made immigration terrible. He still hasn't addressed that many of those people, in his own words, were suffering from COVID and that could lead to the spread here. He hasn't addressed that he admitted in his own words that there was crime running rampant through there. He hasn't addressed that meant that this administration, including Harris, were focused on others more than the citizens of the United States. He hasn't addressed any of that. And instead, he's tried to make excuses for lockdowns that were extended, which I don't think he's provided sufficient evidence. When I tried in good faith to go to it, you can see that one, he's claiming to understand terms that don't even exist. And second, that he complains when I'm literally just trying to ask questions to figure out what he's talking about, because he has a preordained spiel that he wants to say that he's unable to articulate, and he wants to claim that this was the reason for the disastrous lockdown policies. None of that stuff, for example, would explain the fact that we were locking down children, despite that every other first world nation in the world had decided that it was a huge mistake to be locking down this children, which was the one area that I specifically talked to. He hasn't addressed any of that. He literally seems to be implying that we didn't have enough trucks to allow the economy to be open because so many of these trucks had to be shipping food. I asked him if that was kind of what he was saying, and he seemed to him and haw about it. All of this is a red herring. These disastrous policies are around the head of Biden and Harris. She was there for this, and he doesn't have a defense for these policies, which then ended up causing things like inflation and the terrible economic measures that we saw.
Again, you seem to blanket statement every single thing that I said. I don't know what to tell you, Rob. All I'm trying to say is every time I start to get going, you just take control and just talk over the top. So how would you like to handle this from this point on?
We'll bring up the timer. I was literally asking you questions. I admitted to you that I didn't understand what you were saying. I was asking you questions and you complained about it. That's fine. That's fine. We'll bring up the timer. We'll each speak in 2-minute increments. You could have the first 2 minutes if you like.
No, you go ahead. I mean, the problem is every single time I try to say anything, at a point you tell me I'm talking too long, even though I let you run on for as long as you possibly wanted right there. I just let you run on. You ask me something, I'm just like, yeah, whatever. And then you're like, yeah, money fits it. Who cares at this point? You're not allowing me to bring out any topics. You're doing the mansplaining.
Okay, you have 2 minutes. Go ahead. Then it'll go, and then I'll have my 2 minutes. So you can talk about whatever you want for 2 minutes.
Fire it off. Fire away.
Your timer's running.
I said fire away. You can go ahead and start off.
Oh, you want me to start? Okay. Then you've neglected your first 2 minutes, I'll say. All right.
Sure.
These complaints seem to be a red herring from the fact that we can see when it comes to economic measures, it's clear that the American people correctly say that the economy was better under Trump. Now, Trump gets blamed for all this stuff at COVID. As you can see, the Democrats didn't have any better plan. In fact, the plan of the Democrats was to continue the vaccines that existed under Trump and to have other authoritarian, disastrous policies, such as rescinding the executive orders that made COVID worse by bringing in people that had the illness, as my opponent admits here. And they also did other terrible things like locking down children, pushing vaccine mandates, etc. None of it was rooted in science. The root cause of why we suffered tremendously after COVID wasn't COVID itself. It wasn't even the actions of countries like China. It was the disastrous reactions we had in our own country, such as lockdowns, mass money printing, etc. People like the Democrats suggested lockdowns, then said, my goodness, people are locked down, we need to send them money, then sent money, and that caused inflation, massive money printing, to the fact where M2 money supply increased by 50% during the reaction to COVID. Even though it's true that Trump spent an awful lot of money in that final year of COVID, the Democrats are the ones that crafted most of those bills and wanted to spend more, which he does deserve criticism for signing. But the Democrats would have done worse. Joe Biden and Harris would have done worse. And we could see it looks like when it comes to the total 4-year, the Harris-Biden administration looks like deigned to have more deficit spending, despite the fact that Trump had to massively spend during that pandemic year. They didn't deal with the pandemic of that nature. Also, we can see that under the same time frame, despite the fact that Biden had his plan hand delivered to him on a plate by the Trump administration of his vaccines, in the same time frame that Trump dealt with COVID, there were actually more deaths that occurred during Biden. And this goes to speak to what they were doing. It wasn't based on science. It was based on being authoritarian, and it caused horrible impacts, which now they're trying to rewrite history. I would love to have him defend, Sage to defend, the vaccine mandates and how unscientific they were and disastrous to the people engaged in them. Okay, you got 2?
Yeah, I'm not going to be doing the vaccine mandates. That wasn't the top of the discussion here. If that's something you'd like to, I can do that on a further date. So in regards to the China was doing a bullwhip effect. They would open and close. When it was time for us to purchase, they would basically close down different manufacturing sectors, which would put us into a demand sector, which would meaning we weren't able to get the products to place order it. So we'd have to wait to try to get that. Then they would open up those sectors as we would basically try to get those goods. That putting us into a logistical bullwhip effect that caused our supply and demand to shoot up. This caused inflation. And it was the fact that we knew there was a report done like I said, in 2015 that they were fully aware of, that basically if we had any type of effect like this on our ports, we would not be able to keep up. China runs 24/7 with automation, and we do not. This, on top of the shipping needs to be able to get the goods on site, were basically limited by the capacity that we have to get this. This also caused the inflationary aspect. This was done by 5 out of the 6 bills that were done when Trump was in office with his administration, that he even asked for more money, and they settled on that. And it wasn't until the last bill that was done under Biden that basically made that decision. So this is where we ended up inserting money. You insert a ton of money. Supply and demand states that once you have a high demand and low supply, things are going to be more. So then what happens is basically budgets were blown out by companies who couldn't afford the logistical part of that. So as the CEOs and CFOs got together at the end, they looked at how much money they had left in their logistical supply, and then they said, hey, we're running out of money. We're going to have to raise prices. So then they raised prices to compensate for the lost logistical budgets that they ran into. That's where you ended up getting some of these companies that started charging more for their goods just to offset the logistical budgets that were blown out because of the demand for the product.
Good.
Yeah, is it supposed to show on my screen the 2 minutes or no?
You can see it on I don't know how to make it show up on your screen, honestly. It's showing up on my screen, so you have my screen pulled up there on your chat, right? So you should be able to see it there.
Yeah. Oh, okay, so it's on this. Okay, I'll move this over.
Do you want? You could have the next 2 minutes. Fair enough. I didn't know you couldn't see it. I thought you could. So do you want the next 2 minutes?
Go ahead.
You sure?
Go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, because I have 15 seconds. Yeah.
Is this better with the 2 minutes?
Yeah,
I'm fine with this. Okay. All right. All right, I'll start my 2 minutes. I don't think he's doing anything except repeating the exact same talking points. Again, I tried in good faith to go specifically through what he was talking about. You have to draw a straight line to, even if everything he's saying true, that because of these disastrous effects of a natural disaster and the effect of COVID and this disease, it caused situations to occur in China, which caused this sort of bottleneck, which then caused all of these supply issues, which resulted in inflationary pressures, injecting more money into, etc. None of this explains the fact that the way that this was handled was exacerbated by the Biden administration. He talks about how this caused inflation and other things of that metric. Again, the Democrats wanted to spend more, and it seems to be that he's suggesting that that spending was necessary because of the terrible situation that people were in because of the logistics that he's talking about in the first place. Nonetheless, you can see how it avoids all the conversations that I talked about the specific length of the lockdowns that the Biden administration was saying. I refuse to believe that we had to lock down certain sectors of the economy and we were lied about why they were locked down, because the real reason was we didn't have enough trucks because all of the trucks were sending food. Therefore, your friends and family and people that were locked down from non-essential businesses, we were told they had to lock down because of the illness of COVID. But it seems as what Sage is saying is that was a lie. The Biden administration lied, and actually we were forced to lock them down because if we would allow those businesses to be open, it would have required trucks that were coming, which would have meant there were less trucks to deliver food, which would have caused inflationary pressures on food. I don't believe that's true. I believe he's saying some things that are true, and then he's drawing conclusions that aren't true. How does that explain locking down children? How does that explain the terrible vaccine mandates and the other authoritarian policies? These things had real-world impacts and harm to people's lives, and the fact that he says, I don't want to talk about vaccine mandates, I thought the topic of the debate was the Kamala Harris and versus Trump, and we're talking about Kamala is responsible for the actions that occurred during the Biden administration. He literally, the reason we got on this is when I brought this up, he said, but they had to do all of this because of COVID. So he hasn't defended that she wasn't there for it. So why wouldn't it be fair game to talk about the disastrous vaccine mandates that she was part of as a larger thing of the terrible disaster that led to immigration, economic, and bad policy on COVID, by the way. Okay, you ready?
Yeah. Does it reset?
Yeah, I'll reset it. I did, but go ahead. Whenever you start speaking, I'll hit it.
Oh, okay. So he keeps bringing up what he believes is going to be a strong point. It was never a debate on the vaccine mandates and that type of situation. It was basically based on Trump and Harris and who's better. So as going forward, also in some of the aspects that brought this forth was also the tariffs in which Trump placed. Trump basically placed tariffs on China in regards to their products, and they put retaliation tariffs on us in regards to soybeans and farmers. We had to bail the farmers out $28 billion, which also caused them to not buy our goods and for these containers to go back to China empty. That caused what we call basically a drop and hook situation and a live load. A drop and hook situation means you can just drop it and go and pick it up and go again. A live load takes longer. So say we're going back to China with empty containers, just dropping them, reloading loaded containers, coming back again. That also put enormous pressure on the supply chain because of that. China basically just said, you know what? I don't want your goods. You can go ahead and put tariffs on us, and we're going to slap. Then when Trump had to bail that out with the $28 billion for with the farmers, that also put the issues in regards to the supply chain aspect of it. Actually, 2 minutes is a lot more than a long time than I think, so I can probably slow down. Perfect. Now, this is also some of the aspects that he dealt with some of his other tariffs, and including some of his negotiations that he made with NAFTA, getting rid of NAFTA and bringing in the USMCA, or the aspects of the negotiations that he did with OPEC in regards to oil. So now you have Trump that's basically negotiating different free trade agreements with China, getting rid of NAFTA, which basically changed absolutely nothing, added sections of the TPP agreement to that, but which he basically pulled us out of, on top of dealing with OPEC, basically cutting supply for OPEC and then drill, baby, drill, baby, drill, which also brings a bad aspect for some of his policies that he wants to put in place. The more we drill oil, he actually ended up drilling oil and producing so much oil that it lowered oil prices down to under $45 a barrel. That is the minimum we need. That is the minimum that oil companies need here to turn a profit. The more cheaper oil gets here, the more we drill, the more supply and demand that aspect, as you all want to know, the less that price gets, the less opportunity oil companies are going to want to drill here. The best thing for us to do is have a realistic oil price, because then they drill natural gas, which keeps natural gas prices low, which is energy cost, and that lowers. Okay.
First off, the oil companies all almost unanimously want Trump to be president. Remember, it was the Biden-Harris administration, Harris herself, that said ban fracking, that basically said they were going to put fossil fuels out of business. That future signal to those businesses stymies things like investment, which is a disaster. Despite the fact of all the things he's trying to say, we can see that if it was true that these caused inflationary pressures, that we would have expected to see that because Trump's tariffs on China were occurring long before COVID in 2020. And yet we could see that inflation was fantastic during the Trump administration. What he won't be able to get around is the policies of the Harris-Biden administration. 2 of the years which they controlled the House and the Senate led to real wage growth declining, which is terrible. It would always naturally go up at least somewhat. And so even though people are getting more money because inflation is outpacing it because of the disastrous policies that they supported, people actually have less take-home money. So the idea that somehow oil companies are so stupid that they drilled so much that they made themselves non-profitable because the price of oil went down so much, then why would you explain that the oil companies want Donald Trump back in office? Surely they would say, we don't want this because it's a disaster, because it means we can't be profitable because we've lowered the prices of fossil fuel. Now, I don't disagree that there is a certain amount of low price that could be a problem, but in general, a good sell to the American people, Harris Biden will do more to make oil and therefore your gasoline and fossil fuels more expensive, and that's what we need. We don't want you to have cheap, readily available energy and fossil fuels. A good sell to them. Nonetheless, I would like to get back to the fact that when we're talking about the Harris Biden administration, so far we've talked about economics, and it is clear that the economic situation under Donald Trump was massively better than that situation under Harris Biden. He has not given any reason why Harris shouldn't be attacked to that. That is why the American people overwhelmingly trust Trump on the economy. All of this bluster about tariffs, remember, Biden's team kept some of those tariffs in, and Harris' team kept some of those tariffs in as well. And again, I can't stress this enough, after the tariffs, things were going swimmingly in this country until the things he talked about, like COVID, that was outside of the people's control.
I have a delay, so just say when.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, so basically some of the tariffs that were put in place, 5 of the tariffs were kept. 5 of the tariffs in regards to, I can't remember one of them, but it's going to be EVs, solar, chips, which AI, and something else, which I can't remember the last one. So basically, these are some of the tariffs that were kept in place. As also that was done was legislation and incentivizing companies to come here. Tariffs as a blanket statement in regards to isolationism, protectionism, and high tariffs is not a good idea. If you can give me one country in the last 100 years that has thrived under isolationism, protectionism, and high tariffs, please let me know what that is. Basically, the tariffs that he's looking to put in place did cause a $28 billion deficit to farmers that had to be bailed out. It also provided containers go back to China was not funded. What happened?
You know what? That's my fault. We're still here. It's just
okay.
Something dumb. Let me see if I can make sure that doesn't happen again.
I'll just keep going. I'm sorry. I just went blank. So basically, also what happened is these are the tariffs that he wants to put in place, even heavier tariffs on countries, to the point that he believes, like a makings of a dictator, he can basically inform different types of companies here that he's going to tariff them 200% just because they're an American company that would like to get on the global sell globally and put them and build in Mexico. Things like that is why he makes him a bad. I don't know how much time I have left, so I'm just going to end here. That's what makes him some bad policies, because I'm all thrown off because that. But go ahead.
Yeah, that's my fault. What happens is when I go to that timer window, sometimes it blanks out my window. I don't know why, what the issue is there, but okay, that was probably about 2 minutes.
I think it was too. I just went on me, and I'm like, oh crap, I have no idea what happened.
Okay. Again, the problem with this conversation, and this is the last I'll speak on the tariff issue, the problem we see is that Trump was there. The record speaks for itself. I know there are a lot of economists, even people like Paul Krugman that have won awards for it, that said that Trump would be a disaster for the economy. They were wrong. Trump did great for the economy. The economy was better under Trump than under Harris Biden. All of this talk of tariffs would have been such a disaster. We would have started to see the ramifications of that long before we would have seen the things that occurred during COVID. Let's talk about some of the economic numbers, since he wants to talk about this. Granted, some of this data is old because I haven't done the research on it, so we're talking about May, June of this year. Average adjusted weekly paycheck under Harris Biden's down 4.4%. Food prices are up over 20%. We can see that fast food prices are up 50% or more. Average consumer debt has grown to $23,000. Only 7% of Americans now make over $150,000. 37% can no longer invest for retirement. 66% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. Gasoline prices have gone up 30% since Biden, which makes absolute sense when you hear Sage here talk to you about how these prices were too low under Trump. Lumber's gone up 347%. Crude has gone up 148%. The corn has gone up 124%. Copper's gone up 94%. We can see that the labor force still hasn't recovered pre-pandemic levels. Real unemployment between 6.5 and 7.7. That's typically a recession level. That's if we trust their job numbers, which they lie about routinely. We can see that GDP slowed in the third quarter. In April of 2024, the U.S. Forget about that. Consumer confidence has cradled. People are no longer confident in that. Wage growth has gone down. It's been a net down. Credit card delinquencies have doubled since 2022. $700 billion of shadow debt. We have $800 trillion shares of reserves. At 1.3 of all dollars in existence were created over this time frame. The dollar shares a record low of 58% of the reserve. During the Biden presidency, the job numbers have been revised down nearly every month, with significant disparities in the Bureau of Labor Statistics. And if we weighed inflation the way we did in the 80s, we would see record inflation that we haven't seen since the Great Depression.
Wow, I didn't know I was going to be able to use my screen because I'm not pulling up any of this information. Everything I'm pulling up is from my brain. But hey, it is what it is. All right. So I'm glad you brought up some of those numbers, and now you realize that some of these numbers flow from the aspects of inflation caused by Trump's policies because of the fix the COVID situation. COVID and Trump's policies that basically brought these inflation on. Now, you're mentioning the numbers, and you can see how tariffs affect these numbers. As you just said, tariff was good, and all these factors are coming in, correct? Well, it's not instantaneous. You don't get instant gratification when it comes to tariffs and the economy. It's not like today it's this price, tomorrow it's that price. Basically, these things are affected over long-term effects. Now, again, I see how you just basically didn't answer my question that I asked you in regards to, can you name a protectionism, isolation, high tariff country that has thrived under those policies? I can guarantee you can't in the last 100 years.
You want me to?
Sure.
Trump's United States.
No, that didn't thrive under protectionism.
Yes, it did.
That
So you're saying, so your argument is Trump wasn't protectionism? So what's the point of this argument?
What I'm saying is that what he wants to do now with a 20% global tax is protectionism. Individual targeted tax just on China is not. So he's now moving from a targeted tax to an protectionism, isolation, high tariff country with a 20% global tax, which he's mentioned. That is an isolation tax, not the one before. That's the ones that were kept in place in regards to targeting. After policies were put in place, like the CHIPS Act, to basically make sure that semiconductors were made here, that incentivized other countries from coming here, and policies that backed them up for long term. Now, the other aspects is you also bring up the fact that if we would have opened things up, how much do you think inflation would have gone up with the demand of going back to schools and all this other stuff? How much do you think that would have added to the inflationary aspect when people would have been going back to work, going back and doing all these jobs and that type of thing? That would have also raised the price because that would have also put demand on a supply chain that was already being crushed. So there's multiple things going on here that might be outside of your realm, but like I just said, I think my time's up. Like I just said, that is not a protectionary aspect unless you're putting a 20-30%. And also, you didn't comment on the 200% tariff after that somebody was going to put on John Deere just for trying to get into a global market.
Okay.
I think I'm good.
You good? All right. All right, I will talk about tariffs one more time. So, yeah, we can see. So now we'll play fast and loose with whether or not Trump's specific tariffs must have been good, but then they were targeted, so they were good. But they're also to blame for the things that we see that were negative during the Biden administration. Make it make sense. Notice another contradictory. He said at one point that one of the reasons inflation went up was because people were staying at home and we were giving them this money, and then they were spending the money on things because they were home. Then he says, but if we would have let the kids go back to school and let the people go back to work, think of how much more inflation that would have caused because people would have been buying things. So you can see the contradiction. On one hand, we're saying when people stay home, they're more likely to spend and buy products. But on the other hand, he says if we let people go back to work and visit their grandparents at nursing homes and let their kids go to school, that would have caused inflationary pressures. Now, when it comes specifically to tariffs, the goal of Trump's tariffs are to force fair competition from countries around the world. There are certain countries that the trade imbalance for the United States is ridiculous. Many of them subsidize their own products, and many of them put tariffs on United States products. And so the goal is a negotiating tactic where Trump will say we will put tariffs on all of this stuff, which will, one, encourage manufacturing to occur in the United States. And I understand the free trade people, and I agree with them on many senses, but one of the things they've done is told you for years, since the 70s or 80s, how important free trade was, and we've watched the wealth and the manufacturing and the jobs of the middle class of this country flee overseas over and over and over again. And so the idea is to bring jobs back here, manufacturing back here, make it more affordable to make in America, while simultaneously forcing these other countries to come to the negotiating table because they'll need access to the United States market. That will mean that we ultimately won't have all the tariffs Trump's talking about, but it's a good bargaining place from the starts of negotiation. He mentioned the CHIPS Acts and things like that. This CHIPS Acts didn't do what everyone said. For example, the plants that they tout that came about, almost all of those plants were planned to come before the CHIPS Acts was actually passed. And what we can see is the massive spending that we've seen for things unrelated to either of these tariffs that Harris supported and wanted more with the Green New Deal also has led to massive inflation. Okay, you're good?
Okay, so I see that you didn't understand the concept, but that's okay. I'll explain it to you again. So we were already spending a bunch of money, but without them going, if you would have added that to the market, also that would have even demanded more demand on the system because they would have been buying food. It's not just about your kids going to school and learning; it's also about the other aspects of things in regards, like I said, food, going out to eat with all this money that people never had in regards to PPP loans, EIDL loans, free money that they didn't have to pay back with PPP loans, EIDL, low cost interest for loans that they were basically doing to keep their business open. Well, a lot of those people misspent that and bought all kinds of crazy stuff, including cars, trucks, all kinds of stuff. Trust me. Trust me. So now, in regards to the tariffs, that's not exactly how tariffs work. What you don't understand is basically you end up paying the tariff. Businesses don't pay the tariff. China's not going to pay the tariff. China's already the lowest price on the block, so they're not going to lower their price to compete with that. So all he's doing is punishing you by basically forcing you to buy these products. Now, what you don't understand is that's not exactly how systems work. So as manufacturing comes back, that also puts demand for labor to go there. So now people have to leave the job that they're doing and go to the new manufacturing job. But new technology and new manufacturing plants that are being built, they're not being built for people. They're being built like Niagara Water, who can basically run a complete facility solely with automating forklifts and self-driving forklifts, and you don't even check in. You basically use a tablet to check in. New manufacturing plants like, I don't know, the kiosk at banks, automotive arms at automotive dealerships where they use automation. That's how we push people out. That's how we compete with automation. They compete with slave labor. We compete with automation. So what we're actually looking to do is bring high-end precision manufacturing type jobs like semiconductors, Group 14 up in Washington when it comes to batteries and things like that. So the low-end manufacturing jobs, we push that out so we have a demand for people to get educated and push and be able to do high-end jobs to be able to perform and get paid more money doing those jobs. I think I'm close.
Yep. All right.
I'm just going to stop in around 30 seconds because I think there's a delay. Go ahead.
Okay, no problem. I'll tell you. I'll say stop if you want when it's time to stop. But I don't mind if you go a little over either, so it's fine by me. All right. Again, we're still on the economic argument here. Again, with the tariffs, what he can't argue is understand that many of the experts that say these things, that these tariffs would be a disaster, it's not taking into account the negotiating principle of it. And it's the same economic experts that said that Trump's tariff and economic policy from 2016 to 2020 would be a disaster. People like Paul Krugman, they were wrong. They were absolutely wrong. They've continued to be wrong over and over again. They said that the policies of Joe Biden would mean that inflation would be transitory. Remember that? That's what the same experts that are now criticizing Trump's tariffs plan were saying. They were wrong about that. They said that it would be, it would be a boon and people's wages would go up. They were wrong. All of the policies that they supported of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris ended up making things worse, and they were wrong at every time. Now they're saying, but trust me, bro, even though we were wrong about Trump in 2016 to 2020, and even though we are wrong about Harris Biden from 2020 to 2024, this time we're right, and trust us, Trump will be a disaster for the economy. He's speaking out of both sides of his mouth when he talks about things such as inflationary pressures if you tell people to stay home versus if you send them back to work, that causes more inflationary pressures. He talks about things like PPP loans. Speaking to the choir, dude was totally against all that. Democrats wanted them more than Trump. And in fact, the Harris Biden administration ran on the promise of sending more direct payments to people. That's largely why they ended up winning Georgia, because they were promising to send more free money to people. And in addition, it is clear that a Harris Biden administration and Harris going forward is going to spend massively when it comes to all sorts of other projects that would be a disaster for this country. For example, we could see their $47 billion that they spent on rural infrastructure for internet, which hasn't connected one person. They constantly promise that they're going to spend all this money to build great things for America, but it doesn't come through. Anyone could say we're spending a bunch of money to do something, and what's ironic is Sage seems to be constantly criticizing the spending, and yet he's voting for the party that wanted to do all of this more spending. And the last thing is, it is possibly true that prices will go up with tariffs, but the counter to that, it's not just everything will be wrong. It would encourage more manufacturing in the United States, will encourage negotiating processes that will eventually lead to lower prices around the world. Okay, you're good.
Okay, so it will not include more manufacturing come to the United States. A lot of times, manufacturing is not based solely on the price. Manufacturing is also based on the logistics of where that stuff goes. So it's very simple. Trump also doesn't understand the fact that his own trade deal that he made, and I guess you don't understand either, that he made with Canada and with Mexico, he is now saying is a horrible deal, even though he said it was the best deal possible when he made it. Well, the issue is that incentivizes people to move down to Mexico so that they can compete on a global market. So now when you start to tell local U.S. businesses, when the President of the United States basically starts to punish U.S. businesses and tells them that they can't grow their company if they're going to go ahead and try to get into the global market, that's an issue. So it's not based, manufacturing is not based on solely the price. If I can ship my manufacturing plant down to Mexico and better serve the Mexican people because of the logistical aspect of it, both labor costs and different other costs, where I can sell that to that market because we are the top market in the world, basically. So there's no way you can buy John Deere tractors here and in Mexico. Why? Because John Deere tractors can be sold for one price here because we are the top economy, but Mexico, Brazil, and down the Pan American Highway do not have the same aspect in regards to the economy. So for your being able to sell that product there, you're going to have to find ways to be productive, efficient for profits. That's how it works. Also, in regards to tariffs, it doesn't bring in manufacturing. There are other aspects that just because you go ahead and you say, hey, we want you to manufacture here, and we're going to tariff it unless you build manufacturing here, that creates a demand. That demand for new jobs, new construction, new things, that raises the price, and that also causes inflation. That's why when we are bringing in it through the Harris administration, they're bringing in high-end precision manufacturing. I can't say this enough. They're moving from an industrial 3.0 to an industrial 4.0 revolution, where we're no longer building the things from steel. We're now moving more towards tech, batteries, AI, robotics, and things like that.
Okay. All of this is a clever way to ignore the record. We could talk about, in theory, what we think these things will do. We could see that the economy was humming along much better under Trump than it was under Harris-Biden. He seems to criticize the idea of protectionism when it comes to tariff. Now he's saying that we're criticizing the trade deal that occurred between the United States, Canada, and Mexico. So there is incentive for companies to stay here if they're afraid that they won't have access to the U.S. market and be able to compete because there are tariffs on their products. Nonetheless, the proof's in the pudding. We could see the experts were wrong about Trump the first time. We could see the economy was better under him. Now, to go back to immigration, we could see that he has already admitted that the idea of his policies and why he's supporting Harris was because they had first and foremost not the American people that were suffering during COVID, but actually leaving in people that were suffering from illness in Mexico and suffering from crime. And so we let them in. He'll then try to claim, when we talk about the massive problems with immigration, which many Americans see as the top priority, he'll say that, oh, it's not their fault. It was things out of their hand. But he's already admitted that they intentionally left these mass amounts of people in. It's constantly the case when it comes to Harris-Biden. What we're told is all of the disasters, but first they told us it wasn't a problem. Then they said, okay, it's a problem, but it's Trump's fault. And so now they're trying to say, okay, immigration could be a problem, but it's all Trump's fault. Yeah, inflation was a problem, even though we told you for years and years that it wasn't a problem, it was transitory, but it's all Trump's fault. It's ludicrous. We're 4 years outside, and to still be blaming Trump for this stuff is asinine. It's clear that when it came to immigration specifically, we've already dealt with the economy, that the Harris-Biden administration was a disaster. They sent the signal to the world that they would allow these people in. They funded NGOs that helped facilitate these people coming in. They rescinded an executive order that helped these people come in. They saw the record amounts of people that were coming in, and they gaslit the American people that the border was secure for years and years. They called people racist that talked about problems of this, and now they only start to pretend to care about this issue once they realize that it is an election issue. And there are communities that don't look like traditional white racist people, such as blacks in inner city, that are getting fed up with the illegals that are being flown into their communities. Okay, you're good.
Okay, so I see how he wants to go back to immigration, but it wasn't me that criticizes Trump's deal in regards to NAFTA and then the EU, Canada, Mexico deal. It was Trump. Trump actually made it. Trump actually said that was the worst deal. That was his call. That's weird because he was the one that mostly negotiated. So now let's go back to immigration. I understand that he's complaining about immigration, but we've already seen that Trump has basically said immigration is a problem. He wants to bring more people in. He wants to bring them. As long as they come in legally, he wants to bring all these people in. That's not a big deal. Bring them in. We're going to need lots of people for AI. We're going to need lots of people for this. So he's literally saying bring more people in. So I'm a little bit confused. Do we need more people or do we don't need more people? Maybe somebody can answer that for me. So now what I'm going to basically also go say is, well, then if immigration is an issue, let's see why immigration was an issue. If we go back and take a look from 10 to 14, immigration wasn't really a problem. Immigration was a problem on May of 2019. Well, what happened in May of 2019? Well, Trump ended up cutting money that used to go to that went to Honduras, Ecuador, and Guatemala. And legitimately, May in 2019, where 138,000 people came in that month, basically they were mostly coming in from the areas in which Trump cut money. Trump also cut money on his last day before leaving office, put major sanctions on Venezuela that affected the people, that drove the largest migration problem out there. The last full day he had in office, he went ahead and signed that bill. He also ended up saying, you know what, you guys can all stay. 150,000 of you guys can all stay. You're not a big deal, no problem. Signaling to Venezuelans that, hey, we might as well come up here. There's no jobs down there. And they're saying, make America great up here. So why don't we just run up there dared the American do all this while building a dam that eventually overflowed because even Mexican president lost his election because of some of the crime rate and some of the immigration situations that were going on. But why don't we do this? Why don't we move on to Trump's other foreign policies in regards to oil and how he handled the OPEC and the Saudis and Putin?
You good?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Oops, sorry. So this is a claim you hear a lot when it comes to immigration, that actually in 2019 things were getting real bad under Trump. If you look at the numbers, it's laughable that they even try to make this claim. So for example, we're talking about in fiscal year 2019, we're talking about, 800,000 by Border Patrol that was met. You can see when we get to numbers like 2023, we're talking about 3 million. Upwards of 2 million. So the problem was exacerbated more than 3 or 4 times, and saying, but things started to get a little bad under Trump. Again, Trump constantly talked about the need to secure the border. We can see that the Democrats constantly said it was secure. He's already admitted, and has to stand to it now, that they intentionally let these people in. Trump says we need people for things like AI. Okay, is that group of people that Biden left in that you talked about that was suffering through COVID, that was bottlenecked in Mexico, suffering through COVID and crime? Are those people coming here to work with AI? Are the illegals that aren't coming here properly working through AI? No. Trump's immigration policy was that we can have legal immigrants, but the immigration policy is designed to benefit the people of the United States. So if we could bring someone in legally that benefits our society and our country, so be it. That's different than what you've already admitted, that we brought in people racked with illness and crime because the Harris administration cared more about them than they cared about the people of the United States while they were suffering mightily during the pandemic. And that sort of thing, and the gaslighting that occurred for 4 years that the border was secure, it's not a problem. You're racist if you claim to notice. The Democrats don't care. Harris doesn't care. The reason that so many people came in addition when you asked the illegals that were coming was, we were told that Biden would let us in. We were told that Harris and the Democrats said that we could come in and get all this free stuff, which is exactly what happened. They sent the signal, they rescinded the executive orders, they told the American people the border was secure, and now they're pretending, whoops, it's all Trump's fault. It was a problem the whole time, but it's all Trump's fault. They don't care about the issue. They're pretending because it's an election year. Okay?
Yeah. Now, it's not I'm the one that said AI. Trump stood in front of all those grocery products that he sat there saying how high inflation was going up. He's the one that said that they needed to bring immigrants in for AI, not me. That wasn't my statement. That was his. So if you go back and find the press conference that he did in front of the box of Kellogg's and all the other food products, that was his statement. These are the ridiculous statements he says that he doesn't even know what he's saying. Just like I said, when it comes to his own draft deal, when it comes to the OPEC deal, in 2020, I'm not sure if you know this, but in 2020, he actually negotiated with OPEC that basically cut production 10%. He's the one that says drill, baby, drill, baby, drill. He's the one that's going to open the Keystone Pipeline. The Keystone Pipeline has nothing to do with our gas prices. It's legitimately Canada oil that goes down to processing and gets ships overseas and basically sold. So these are the term things that he's bringing up that has nothing to do with us at all. Just like he says, drill, baby, drill, baby, drill. We're going to lower gas prices. Gas prices are a commodity. Oil is a commodity. It has nothing to do with how much we pump. That's basically all determined by many factors. He also brought up factors that were completely affected not by me, but were affected by different things. Gas prices aren't affected by can be on a global commodity market are affected by things like, I don't know, war, Houthis attacking different ship lines and things like that. It has nothing to do with the Keystone Pipeline. These are the policies that he's saying. So when he keeps saying that I'm bringing this up, I'm not bringing this up. I'm just giving you what Trump is saying. I'm good.
Okay. Again, I guess in the best moment since he told us that he understood thriftity, we actually can see that he goes back to this AI point. I didn't say you said it and gaslit that it wasn't Trump. I said that what Trump's talking about are professionals that would benefit our country coming here legally. And I asked, is that the people that were racked with illness that were bottlenecked in Mexico? Is that the people we're flying in from Haiti that don't speak the language? Is that the millions of illegals that are crossing the border? Those are the people that AI? No. What Trump is talking about is, yes, there is certain sectors of our economy that could benefit from people coming here, but we should pick those people based on need. need, based on what would help the United States, not based on, like you said, the Harris team's value, which is we are obligated to help these people more than the American people. In a nutshell, Sage concedes the entire reason that Americans should vote for Trump over Kamala right at the gate when he says her priorities will be helping people around the world at the expense of the people in the United States. Yes, she intentionally allowed people that had COVID to come in during the pandemic. She intentionally allowed the border to be open because we had to, because there was crime in Mexico. Then he further talks about gasoline prices and the Keystone Pipeline. Didn't bring up the Keystone Pipeline. There is truth that it helps to drill more here because it helps us become net exporters. But when it comes to the conversation of exactly what leads to gasoline prices, what he won't be able to do is articulate to you how he already said that Trump had oil prices, crude too low, fossil fuels too low, and he concedes that the Biden-Harris administration increased those prices by about 30%, which is asking the people of this country whose real wages have gone down to pay more and more. Again, because his priority, along with the Democratic priority, won't be the people of the United States. So he doesn't want cheap oil. He doesn't want cheap products. He doesn't want people that are actually immigrating here that could do these technically specific jobs to help the people of the United States. He wants to vote for someone who claims to want to help world citizens more than the people of her own country. Okay?
Okay, so let's go back to the immigration topic. So one of the things obviously Trump wants to do is deport 25 million people. I'm not exactly sure how this is going to happen, and I know you guys are a big part of the Constitution, which I am also. But one of the things that if you can show me in the Constitution that if there's an actually limit to the amount of people we can and can't bring in, because obviously Thomas Jefferson couldn't figure it out with the Aliens Enemy Act, which is something Trump wants to use to deport these people. One of the aspects of the Alien Enemy Act was the fact that per the Constitution was the number one law in the land. It did not say anywhere in there the minimum or maximum amount of people that could actually come into this country. So Thomas Jefferson and I can't remember the name of Virginia basically put together the Virginia. God damn it! I'm not pulling stuff up on screen like he is, so he's an advantage of me cheating. But that's okay. I'll just keep going with this. So basically, he was going to deport $25 million. Now I'm trying to figure out how you can do this logistically. Deport 25 million people out of this country, and where we're going to replace those people with? Because I don't know. I don't want any of my kids working in a slaughterhouse. Maybe he wants kids working in a slaughterhouse. Because if you legitimately pull out 25 million people from the government, basically you're going to end up doing what? 16% of those people work in agriculture. 8% of those people work in manufacturing. So just those two alone, where are you going to get the people to end up replacing those people? Who are you going to force to work? Are you going to become a communist country where you now force people to go work in slaughterhouses because you replace those people and send them back by deporting everyone? I don't know. You're going to have to answer that for me.
Okay, you good? All right. So again, you see the quoted big-hearted liberals make this argument all the time. They make the argument, one, we have to have a big heart and let these people in, even at the detriment of the people of the United States. So as he's admitted, which I've said over and over again, and he can't contradict it because he knows he admitted to it, that he knew that these people during COVID, where we had all of these lockdowns and the American people were being told they had to sacrifice, that there was a bottleneck of people suffering from COVID in Mexico, millions that we allowed through because of this bottleneck. Oh, and by the way, there was a bunch of crime occurring there as well, but we had to let those people in to protect Mexico. And so he's already admitted that he has this big heart and the American people need to sacrifice. It's about protecting these people. And then he makes the counter argument. And by the way, we need these people because they do crappy jobs so that we could live in our houses on the top of the hills like slave owners and say, go to work at the slaughterhouse. We demand it. We demand you do these terrible jobs. Oftentimes, these things are overstated, that there are jobs that Americans won't do. In fact, if you look at the alleged job growth, even if you use the numbers that the Harris-Biden BLS has given, we can see that the vast majority of jobs that have been created under them have gone to people that weren't born in the United States. So the people that are suffering mightily in this country right now, people that are citizens of this country, perhaps it would behoove them to have certain jobs open. In addition, there's no reason that Trump would immediately, day one, deport 25 million people. There would be a system that would make sure that it would be done in a way that our economy would be able to handle what would come from that. And this is a massively popular policy because despite the fact that all these academics and think tanks want to advocate for businesses having cheap labor, which brings the cost of labor for even American citizens down because of the 25 million people that are now mass competing against them. The truth of the matter is that this actually is a disaster for workers in the United States, which is why former big-hearted liberals like Bernie Sanders used to criticize these policies. And the majority of these illegals that we're talking about aren't working these jobs that you're talking about. Most of them, the research shows, are a net burden when it comes to taking out more from our government than they're putting in. Okay?
Yeah, I see you're stuck on rinse and repeat, constantly going over the immigration. So I'm going to go ahead and move forward. That way we can move on with this. So also the aspect that you mentioned something about in regards to net energy. Do you know we've been net energy basically producing more energy than we need since 2018, and that's never stopped? We are literally drilling for more oil than any other country has ever drilled ever before. We are now producing more oil. So we're basically pushing that right now. We're basically at the maximum that we can actually process and produce. We only have so many processing plants, and we lost more processing plants for oil under Trump than we did ever before. And plus, we're also, in regards to moving oil out, we have every ounce of natural gas and oil that we're producing extra now is already being sold overseas. So it's already being sent. So it doesn't help us to produce anymore because we're already producing more. And so that, and so in regards to that, I don't understand what he means by net production in energy. We already are. Now, in regards to OPEC, OPEC was basically, Trump went to OPEC and said, hey, gas, oil prices are too high. Oil prices are too high. I'm going to pull back your military aspect if you don't go oil prices, if you don't start pumping more oil. So they did. And then Trump ended up backdooring them and cutting them off and then pumping oil themselves. They got pissed off. So then Trump had to go back and basically do 10% less oil for 2 years, which this is why we've seen gas prices go up, because it's basically a large global factor. And when you go deal with gas prices. So not only did he negotiate the first time bad faith, which drove a lot of oil. Did you wave? No. Not only did he do it the first time, which drove a lot of oil companies to stop drilling or go out of business or go under. You can actually see it where oil went negative at some aspect, but it also made them find a more efficient way to be able to drill oil where they don't need to bring people back. Okay.
Okay, cool. Just so you know, you're always ending a little early. I'll tell you when it beeps, so I don't want to cheat you out of your time.
I don't think you're cheating. It's just I'm at a delay, but I'm good.
I totally understand. I don't know how to fix that, as you understand, but I will tell you when it beeps.
Real quick, do you use OBS?
Yes.
Okay, I'll send you a link for a timer because I won't share mine, but I'll send you a link for a timer that goes with OBS.
But it would still delay on your, because my screen's delayed on your screen, so it would still delay, correct?
Yeah, but mine's not. You see how mine right now is on Discord?
Yeah.
Yours is not on Discord.
Right, it's just a screen capture, but that's not causing the delay. The delay is caused because you're looking at that timer through that screen, which is delayed because that's where the delay
yours is not on Discord for me. There's no timer on Discord because all I see is on the YouTube channel.
Right. You could set the timer on Discord, and I could look through Discord if you want. I'm fine with that. If you want to run the timer,
you can go ahead. But if you can put it on Discord, there's I don't. Anyway, either way, no big deal.
I didn't know that was possible, but yeah, you can send me that link. I'll look into it. Thanks.
And in no way, shape, or form. In no way, shape, or form. I want to be able to go back and forth with you in the future too. Like I understand you like arguing. I think
that it's better to have an interaction where we could ask each other questions stuff. But it clearly wasn't happening, so we have to do the timer thing. That's fine. But yeah, I think we both understand that neither of us are trying to cheat each other at the time. That's why I'm telling you. I will directly, because of the setup we have today, I'll tell you when your 2 minutes is up, and I'm letting you go over. Sometimes I'm not like being a stickler about it, but I don't want you to feel like you have to end prematurely because I'm gonna not tell you when your time's up. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, which I trust you.
Okay. What were we talking about? Let's go here. All right. So again, we can see when it comes to gas prices that these actually were remarkably cheaper under Trump, as he admits that they were. And that was a bad thing, how cheap they were. Now he says because of those cheap prices, actually providing the incentive for the prices to go up later through this process. But the reality is that one of the reasons that we see prices go up is sort of a futures market idea. When it comes to sort of fossil fuel industry, even in places like OPEC, they have a large history of when people threaten their livelihood, that what they do is subvert prices and then raise them when it's convenient. They lower and then contract supply and then inflate supply to try to stop the people that are trying to put them out of business. What we could see is the policies of Harris Biden led to increased fossil fuel prices. Yes, it's true that we're still net exporter, but numbers show because of the policies of Harris Biden that we would have been exporting way more had they not implemented the policies. Even though it's still up, it would have been up way more, and that would have been a good thing. Instead, they've sent the signal to fossil fuel producers in the United States around the world that they're going to end fossil fuels. The only reason they're doing it right now is because temporarily, because of economic reasons, because they don't have the political will, that they need it for cheap energy, because the American people are furious because it turns out that their Green New Deal type policies will lead to them paying much more for their energy needs and all other products, as someone in logistics would know. In addition to that, why would we want to produce more and sell more? Well, for example, let's look at countries like Germany that relied on energy from places like Russia. And there's a lot of other countries around the world that would be our allies that rely on cheap energy from countries we consider hostile. Those countries, if we continue to produce more and could finance their needs through this production, not only is it a boon for us financially in the United States, but it tremendously helps our allies and harms countries that we consider our enemies. Instead, what we see from the Harris Biden administration is our allies like Germany suffer because Harris Biden, either by themselves with the United States or through allowing Ukraine to do it, destroyed the Russian Nord Stream pipeline, one of the biggest acts of the energy terrorism in the history of the world, which harmed them, Germany. Okay, you're good.
Okay, I'm glad you brought that up. So one of the reasons that we also pushed the Green New Deal is the same reason that we pushed the same thing during stagflation in the 1970s with Japan. A government's job is not to just create businesses, it's also to incentivize businesses through policy. So one of the things that we actually did in Japan was we incentivized that through the EPA and bringing in 4-cylinder cars and allowing them to make cars here, because we had 8 cylinders and we had an oil situation back then. Now we pump more than we do. We actually want oil companies to be profiting. That's a good thing, because if they profit, believe it or not, where they're selling those profits overseas, they actually make more natural gas, and natural gas is a byproduct of oil. So natural gas market is solely contained on us. We control our natural gas market. That is something that is at an all-time low because of that oil drilling. But at some aspect, it doesn't matter because we already are sending that overseas. And so in regards to the natural gas also. Now, you're right, we do, but one of the reasons that we're pushing for the Green New Deal and that type of stuff is to get China away from coal. So the more we get away from coal, the more China is going to get away from coal, and they are obviously one of our adversaries. So the more we incentivize companies to do Green New Deal type thing and new energies and different things with natural gas, which is one of the Green New Deal aspect, natural gas would be also powering different things, we can get China basically away from coal. It's not about getting China away from coal to making them a better in regards to that. It's limiting their ability to continue to produce things like military equipment and stuff like that, because they're running on coal power plants. When everybody else is moving away from coal, there will eventually be a shortage of coal and will cost them more money for that coal. That's some of the Green New Deal aspect on a policy to push different countries away from our adversaries.
I mean, I feel like you have this exactly backwards. If the United States and our allies decide to stop using fossil fuels like oil, gasoline, natural gas, and coal, what that means is the countries other than the United States that you don't control are still going to rely on selling those natural resources, and all you've done is make sure that the demand has significantly decreased, which means China will be able to buy those cheap fossil fuels much cheaper. And the problem with that is now that they could have even more coal in all of the countries in the world that you don't control, that aren't going to sabotage their own economy by refusing to sell their natural resources, they're going to make less money now. They're going to sell it to China cheaper, and China is going to be far dirtier with the way that that stuff is used than places like the United States that has school scrubbers and things like that allow to more clean coal technology. For example, the OPEC nations are never going to willingly sabotage and say, cool, we're glad the United States is going away from fossil fuels, we're just going to stop drilling. That won't happen. They're going to turn to markets like China. It will also be remarkably cheap for China. And so when you talk about the buildup of their military, they will have far more ability through the limited money they're spending on energy, because it's going to be so much cheaper for them to build up things like being a global superpower and being stronger in the region. So you actually have this exactly backwards. The Green New Deal is a disaster. I'm amazed that you're conceding the fact that this is in fact what Harris is going to be pushing for, because it will affect affect the people that are the lowest income in our country and working people. They are going to pay through the nose once we get rid of cheap fossil fuels. And it's done based on junk science that's encouraged to enrich certain allies of the administration at the expense of hardworking Americans, like almost every policy that the Harris-Biden administration has had. You didn't answer any of the stuff I said about the need to increase production that would help our allies, that would bring financial benefit to our country, etc. You didn't answer how futures markets means that there's less investment in places like fossil fuels if they think that Biden or Harris can snap their finger and end their industry. Okay, you're good.
Okay, perfect. I see you don't understand supply and demand. So the more supply and the less demand for something, the price goes down. So if China's the only one looking to still maintain coal and there's a lots of basically supply of it, there's not much demand for it, people will literally stop mining for coal because there's no need for it, just like oil, like I talked about before. If the price of oil drops down under $45 a barrel, the U.S. drill rigs aren't going to drill for it because there's not enough profit in it. So once you start to basically say there's not enough people out there buying coal, most of them are using natural gas and still oil. And although we say we're looking to get off oil, it is basically incentivizing other technologies to push forward and try to come up with better technology. It's a way to push into new industries in regards to most likely solar and natural gas and hydrogen, things like that. So it has nothing to do with the fact that it's just basically in regards to the aspect of, it has nothing to do with the fact that it's in the basic aspect of completely getting rid of oil. That's what they say to incentivize it. Now, when it comes to drilling, you can only drill so much. We are literally at some of the maximums we have right now. So it doesn't matter when Donald Trump says he can lower energy costs 50% within a year. That's not possible. It's not possible. And he's going to have to show me how he can do that because energy experts in the field say it's not possible. So I'm trying to figure out he knows more than them.
Good. Energy experts in the fossil fuel industry overwhelmingly support Donald Trump and are opposed to Green New Deal policies. As you know, they say it would be a disaster. It would lead to many millions of deaths in this country and around the world through things like poverty, through things like our supply chain being taken out and other things of that nature. It is a disastrous policy, and I'm glad once more you've conceded that this is what Harris and Biden is pushing for. Ask yourself this, American that's listening. Do you want a world where you're paying as much as 8 to 9 to 10 times more for your energy needs, for your groceries, for anything that's shipped, because we are massively transitioning and ending the fossil fuel industry? We're spending trillions upon trillions of dollars, which you've already admitted that massive amount of spending contributes to inflation. So we're talking about plans that would cost trillions of dollars, completely refurbish the way that our energy industry is done. And the idea that he says I don't understand supply and demand, of course I do. I already explained how there would still be a market in China. The idea that it would get so cheap that all of a sudden these places would say, we're sitting on a bunch of coal, but we're not going to mine it anymore because we think it's too cheap. It won't get that cheap. They'll continue to mine it. It will still always be net profitable to them. It'll just be cheaper for China, who will then use those resources to be able to build up their military and other things. If it ever got cheap to the point where those countries refused to start producing it, then China would offer some sort of deal to them because they're not going to change to the much more expensive and long-term Green New Deal type plans that would be necessary. This is just nonsense. In addition, we can see there's a historical precedent for this. As I already said, traditionally we see like the House of Saud and those in OPEC nations, what they see when there's policies like this that are suggested, they're willing to lower the prices of their fossil fuels because they know that it ends up best for them in the long run because the natural resources that they sit on are the lifeblood of their country. The idea that they'll just throw up their hands and say, geez, the demand's so low now that we can't sell this except to China, which it won't be just to China. It'll be a bunch of nations. So we're going to stop producing and basically go into bankruptcy is nonsensical. This energy will be produced. It will be bought cheaper by China. It will be dirtier. And the American people are the ones that will suffer the most. Okay, you're good?
Okay, I can probably slow this one down, make sure we understand. So in regards to technology, we can stay where we're at and continue with fossil fuels, or we can push forward to be at the advanced technology state of bringing in new technology to push forward in regards to battery technology, semiconductor technology, and advancements in technology in that way. Even solar panels, even electric cars. Right now, China and Japan are the number one automotive manufacturers out there. They make them, right? So now we have to look forward to be a part of this technology revolution. We can sit back and continue to do oil. I'm not saying oil is going to go away, and I'm not sure how I concede the fact that, yes, there is a Green New Deal and a need for new technologies and a new advancements in technology, which is progressed by different type of policies like the Green New Deal, which also brings us lots of other technologies. Like I said, advanced batteries, advanced semiconductor chips, advancements in all sorts of aspects of things that go with the Green New Deal. It is not solely based on the energy and the auto and the cars. It is based on the technology of the self-driving trucks, the AI, the software, the tracking technologies that are even going into these type of things to maintain higher, better batteries, higher, better technology and products for us.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, it's interesting. I thought I was arguing with a libertarian when we were talking about the principle of tariffs, which I sympathize sometimes with the argument. Now I'm arguing with someone who wants to go the other direction, have massive subsidies, apparently. And I think the Green New Deal also puts penalties on fossil fuel producers as well to encourage the transition to these new technologies. But when the government gets involved in sort of these things, what it does is it oftentimes rushes things along, that there's corruption, there's ineptitude, etc. And so it ends up benefiting a small amount of people like Solyndra, the allies of Barack Obama, where they get incredibly wealthy. And what happens is it's the normal American people that end up paying more. And so we could already see policies that he's suggesting Harris would do, for example, led to a 30% increase in people's energy bills here in the United States, which is a reason you should vote against it, because he's admitting that that would continue. My argument is it would exacerbate. They are sending the signal to the fossil fuel companies that they want to put them out of business. Kamala Harris has said that she wants to ban fracking. Now she's saying, I changed, but can't explain why. She says her values are still the same. These are people that fearmonger about climate change, and what it means almost every time is, the bottom line is, enrichment for certain people that are allies with them, that are billionaires or millionaires that own these companies, and paying more for the average person. It doesn't really articulate why this won't cost trillions of dollars. It seems to be the case that it would. He criticized the spending of things like PPP, which I admitted earlier was laughable. How could you say you're going to vote for Democrats and Kamala Harris if your argument is we need to spend less money as a government? Now he's pushing Green New Deal type policies. The truth is the status quo is leading to a transition of alternate technologies of fuel. It's leading to increased battery technology, etc., and trying to rush it along by stymieing fossil fuels artificially, which will hurt the American people, will harm our allies, and it will seek to benefit only wealthy people that are in the green tech here. And it will benefit places like China that will then buy up all the cheap fossil fuels and be better than the United States when it comes to the energy cost that they're paying for. Okay, you're good?
Perfect. I'm glad that he puts words in my mouth in which I did not say, but hey, we can continue on. We can go back to the tape later. So in regards to coal and things like that, I don't know if he knows this or not, but China's actually building nuclear power plants. So they're also going to stop buying coal also. So it's not just that aspect, right? So we just put in a nuclear power plant, and that is something we should drive forward with, and that is something that I do agree with also is nuclear. But of course, nuclear is the big scared thing, which, like it or not, since Chernobyl, that was something that me and him will probably both agree on. But either way, I do believe in nuclear power. And so they are already moving away from coal because they saw us doing that. Now, if we go back to the situation in regards to tariffs and in regards to the aspect, oh God, I can't remember what you said now because I'm doing this off the cuff here.
It's fair.
If we go back in regards to the aspect of tariffs and regards to subsidies, I didn't say that it was just based on subsidies. I said it was also based on policies. Like I said, we got good things. Good things came when we had stagflation from Japan, when we got 4-cylinder cars, because now somebody can buy a 4-cylinder, 6-cylinder, 8-cylinder car. At one time, we were and fuel injected. We were rocking 4 barrels. Trust me, I had one in 1979 Buick Estate Wagon 400 with a 4-barrel. I could literally watch the gas go down instantaneously when I stepped on the pedal, it felt like. And as a new driver, let's just say. So that we basically got new technologies and improvements. This is the way countries also incentivize people. Now, let's talk about incentivizing. One of the ways Donald Trump likes to incentivize is to threaten 200% tariffs on companies like John Deere rather than incentivize them to stay in the country. He would rather threaten them when they want to try to go ahead in the global and work and sell to other countries. But now when it comes to oil and natural gas, you don't have a problem with them selling to other countries. But when it comes to basically John Deere trying to be competitive with other countries, you do. Kind of confused.
Sorry? Okay. All right. So I understand you're upset with me actually looking at data because you claim that you have these things in your head. But remember, you're the person who claimed to understand the concept of the Federal Reserve and thriftiness. I don't even remember the word, which is a word that I made up, which you said, which sort of shows that your expertise is something that should be questioned. You said something there that immediately put alarm bells in my head as being incorrect, where you said actually China's transitioning away from coal and they're building nuclear plants. That is an absurd statement. So a brief search and goes with my to intuition that China accounted for 95% of the world's new coal-fired power plant construction. They built 52 gigawatts, I believe that's what GW stands for, of coal in just the first half of 2023. The rest of the world built 4 gigawatts of coal. They are building coal like crazy. Like crazy, more than the rest of the world combined by a large part. And so, again, it puts skepticism in all of the things you're saying. What we do know is by doing things like the Green New Deal that it will harm fossil fuels in the United States, which will mean people pay more at the pump, and it will cause inflation by causing trillions of dollars. And that the status quo is solving the problems that the people that push the Green New Deal want. What we can see is, despite all of the theoretical projections and things like that, that actually the fossil fuel prices and energy prices under Harris-Biden have been exacerbated tremendously, and it's led to people paying more for all of their products and a big part of inflation here in the United States. What we can see is that the increased production of and supporting things, the natural occurrence of things like a natural transition to other things while we support fossil fuels would be better for the United States and our allies. None of that's sort of disputed. Instead, we just have these sort of red herrings. Trust me, bro, China's transitioning away from coal. They built a nuclear power plant when in reality, they're massively increasing exponentially the amount of coal-fired plants that they're building. So they clearly know that there's going to be the supply necessary for that, and there will be a demand. It'll just mean China's paying less, which means that they will have cheaper energy, which means that they will be more of a geopolitical rival to the United States. Okay?
Perfect. I'm glad you basically don't understand sarcasm, but I see you gladly left out the fact that China, which is building more new nuclear capacity than any other country, approved 10 new reactors in both 2023 and 2022. There are currently 56 operating reactors in China, providing about 5% of the country's total power. So you obviously left that portion out, but that's okay. We can just go with your side. We'll just go with the coal ones. But hey, it is what it is. Now, like I said before, we can go ahead and move with Trump's policies in regards to different types of negotiating tactics and things that he does. We can obviously see that some of the stuff, because we're almost at 2 hours, right? What time is it? Yeah. We can obviously see that some of the policies that he's putting out there, he doesn't even understand them. He even comments that his own policies are bad, that the things that he negotiated weren't that good. He threatens he threatens United States companies, entities, actual entities in regard of as a president, that if they're willing to go to another country and build manufacturing, that basically they're going to be punished for that. Now, I understand people are going to say, yeah, but the jobs. But the issue is that I know people say this to me all the time. They say, well, without us, you wouldn't have, because of us workers, that's the only reason you make any money. Now, it's actually the other way around. I'm the one that opened up the business. I'm the one that basically took the risk. I'm the one that put the money in. I'm the one that started it. I'm the one that got the sales. I'm the one that provides a value to my customer. And because of that, that gives you an opportunity to work for me if I hire you. So this is something you have to understand, that we have, and if that's what actually drives small business. Barack Obama once said, you didn't build that, we helped you build that. So now you can either decide if that's true or not, because here Trump is saying the exact same thing with threats.
Okay. The real person that's offering the threats are people that saying they're going to put businesses out of work, such as ending fracking, and that's exactly what the Green New Deal and Joe Biden and Harris have said that they want, to put the fossil fuel industry out of business. Those are the sorts of threats we're talking about. Again, I don't know what you're trying to say. You don't understand. I don't understand sarcasm. You made the argument that clearly coal is on the decline in China because they built a nuclear power plant. And then when I say, no, they're building exponentially increasing the amount of coal plants, you're like, but look, less than 5% of their energy is from nuclear. Right. Yeah, where do you think over 50% of their energy needs are coming from? And they're ever expanding. And projections show that they're going to continue to expand with coal. Again, this is just BS, and it's all to deflect from the point. We could see when it came to energy, when it came to the economy, Trump did far superior to Harris-Biden. All of this is red herrings, but this predictions, the experts say, and let me explain this convoluted thing with supply chains, and actually we want Americans to pay more for fossil fuels. That's a good thing, because if they don't, then it'll lead to fossil fuels being eliminated because China, and it's just, he doesn't know what he's talking about on many of these issues. He has the confidence to sound like he does, but we could see the track record, and we could see when you slightly interrogate some of the positions he's talking about, that it's just not rooted in truth many times. Now, when it comes to foreign policy in general, I would be behooved to talk about how much conflict is occurring around the world. Places like Israel, which we saw peace deals that were being proffered while Trump was in office, and now we see conflicts that's occurring, some of the greatest we've seen in a generation or two that's occurring between Israel and Palestine. We see the conflict exacerbated in places like Ukraine, a quagmire where it seems destined that people like Harris and Biden want to keep that conflict going for their own personal reasons and for those of their wealthy donors at the expense of the Ukrainian people, which will mean that this conflict will continue in perpetuity. All of these things occurred during Harris-Biden. As with all of these disastrous policies we always see the answer is, trust me, bro, next time it'll be worse under Trump, and it was bad under Biden-Harris because of Trump, and it was good under Trump because, I don't know. Okay?
How many more times do you want to go, just so I know?
It's up to you, man. If you want to start wrapping up, I'm cool with that. Whatever you're feeling, man.
Okay, all right. I'll keep going. All right.
How much longer do you think you want to go? Just give me a ballpark. I don't care.
9 o'clock was what I thought, just so you know.
Okay. So wait, we're going roughly 2-minute increments. We'll say we do 2 more of these closing statements. That's roughly around 9. You cool with that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I appreciate it.
No problem.
So, all right. So I'm glad you actually brought up Ukraine in regards to that. So one of the things that Ukraine is actually doing is fighting for their freedom, right? We also have the Minsk agreement, which we said we would defend them against a nuclear power, but also that the side of Ukraine is something that we should defend. That is something that if it is the breadbasket of the, I always get this wrong, West. Yeah, right, West. Yeah, it's the breadbasket of the West. So in regards to that, it might be the East. Either way, you know what I mean. That is not something you want to lose to Russia and give to your adversaries, right? And when it comes to wartime, one of the things that is the most important thing in the world is going to be energy, and even food energy to be able to supply to different types of soldiers, things like that. So that type of thing should be defended. That's who we are. We defend things like that. We help the countries defend democracy. You know, that's what the United States is made of. I can't remember the other aspect I was going to go.
Do you mind if I ask you a question real quick? When you said energy from Ukraine, what type of energy was it? I missed that part. I'm so sorry.
Food energy. So they're the breadbasket. They're providing food. Food is an energy.
Okay. Industry, not energy. I got you. I'm so sorry.
Sorry, I'm sorry. You know what I mean. Which basically provide, industry. Besides that, it's all right. Fuck. I forgot where I was going to go down the road.
You're doing fine. We're talking about Ukraine specifically, if that helps refresh your memory. The need to protect Ukraine from Russia.
We have a need to basically protect that. That is also basically defense. At one time, the United States also got support from another country called France. They helped us to basically go against England. So we are also helping them. Now, I know everybody says, well, they're only doing it for this reason. They're only doing it for corruption. They're only doing it to money launder. But that's actually not just the case. We are also not giving them large sums of money just as money handing them over. We are selling them equipment. Just like when we left Afghanistan, people said that we left $85 billion worth of equipment down there. That wasn't our equipment. That was equipment that we sold. We also had no means to be able to take that back. So this is some of the stuff that gets spread when it comes to overseas aspect. When you did say in regards to overseas policy, Afghanistan is one that I can bring up that both Biden and Trump were responsible for. Trump basically wanted a rapid withdrawal even from Afghanistan in regards to that conflict. Once he found out that he didn't win the election, he basically brought it down to 2,500 troops where we couldn't actually defend the airbase, nor could we basically bring back any of that equipment. So I'm not sure how we bring back $85 billion equipment that we don't even own, that we sold to them, with only 2,500 soldiers to basically protect all that. That's when Biden had to come in. Also, like it or not, I'll admit it, didn't do a very good job doing it also. But he had very little to work with once Trump decided to pull some of the troops out of there. So these are two conflicts that Trump was a part of before he left, that was one conflict that Trump was a part of before he left also.
Okay.
I don't know where I'm at.
When it comes to Ukraine, they didn't invade under Trump. They did invade under Obama. They did invade under Biden. The truth is that our enemies respected Trump and thought that he was someone that was powerful. They were emboldened when it was people like Obama and Harris. Strength through projection is better than having to finance these wars. There is no plan from the Biden administration when it comes to sort of these conflicts. It's just funding them in perpetuity. We can see that the United States and their allies under the Harris-Biden administration have sabotaged potential peace deals, and this means that the people that suffer the most are the people in the United States that have to continue, even if it's not sending direct cash, which much of what we're sending over there is direct cash, but if it's sending weapons and things like that, those will inevitably need to be rebuilt, which is more spending in this country. It's another thing, which again, I want you to remember the central concession at the beginning of this debate, that during a pandemic where we were telling people, you can't go to your daughter's wedding, you can't go to your father's funeral, you can't send your kid to school, you can't go to work, because it was that serious, that the first priority of the Harris-Biden administration was, let's let a bunch of sick people where there's crime running rampant into this country because there's a bottleneck in Mexico. That purveys exactly what a Harris-Biden administration is. That's what Harris will continue to do. The priorities is never the people of the United States. It's almost like they dislike the people of the United States and continue to say that they must sacrifice more. And so the idea that we have to fund this in perpetuity harms the Ukrainian people and harms the United States people. The Afghanistan withdrawal is laughable. First, there was enough troops there to protect Bagram Air Base. You know how I know? Because there weren't significant attacks on Bagram Air Base and they were protecting it. Secondly, there's no reason if Biden didn't like it, he stopped a bunch of other Trump executive orders. He could have renegotiated or done what he wanted. The idea that this was the one thing he had to follow is ridiculous. And third, nothing said that he had to bring those troops back from Bagram Air Base and then rely on the Taliban for security, which then led predictably to the Taliban freeing ISIS-K. So ISIS-K was freed by the Taliban, who we were told we had to rely on for security, which led to the deaths of 13 troops and a bunch of innocent Afghanis, which then led to the Biden administration bombing ISIS-K. Oh, wait, thanks to X, we realized it wasn't ISIS-K. It was a translator and his family and children that they bombed. You're good. One more here, one more, and then we'll get to closing statements. So,
okay. Yeah. So, okay, that's fantastic. That's another aspect that. Oh shit! Stand by.
I'll pause. Go ahead. I'll pause the timer. Go ahead. We'll just restart it. You all right?
I have a truck loading, and I just got a text message. I just want to make sure.
Yeah, take your time. Take it. Real world comes. Your livelihood comes first. Obviously, I'm enjoying myself. I don't wish any financial hardship on you.
Too. I just want to make sure that message doesn't say, "Hey, I broke down," because that would suck.
Yeah, okay, dude, trust me. I know people. Again, I know the drivers, so I know people dealing with folks like you that really need help sometimes. So I get it. I really do.
He's gonna pick up in the morning. And he got a message, and it just came across, and I didn't see, it didn't show me what the message was.
So we'll give you the 2 minutes here, but just so you know, we were sort of talking about Afghanistan, Ukraine. Got it? Okay. Whenever you're ready, go ahead.
So. Yeah, so one of the other aspects that we have to understand too is when we're defending other countries, some of the stuff that we have to do is defend these countries, right? Afghanistan was also a situation that if you read the after action report, you can see that some of the stuff that handles this was the State Department actually handles the process of pulling people out. The 2,500 was not enough to protect the State Department and the airport and everything else and pull this equipment out. That was something that Trump basically asked for a rapid withdrawal, and people was trying to figure out how to actually issue that order to get a rapid withdrawal once he realized he did not win the election. He wanted everybody out and put that paperwork. That would have posed a serious problem. And even as military people said, we can't do that. That's not possible. It'd be completely unsafe to do this rapid withdrawal. So that was an aspect he brought to the table and put people in danger. Now, I understand that you're saying that in regards to stuff that Biden and Harris don't care about the American people, but when you start to go back and we look at tariffs in general, tariffs basically use our money. We pay the tariffs. He is basically forcing us to pay more money, and he even stated in his last interview that he did with the can't remember the group that he did it with. I can see the stage, but I can't remember who he did it with. Basically said that if he needs to keep raising the price, he'll keep raising the price. That's punishing us to get what he wants. And we can already show, like I asked before, can you name a country in the last 100 years that has lived under protectionism, isolationism, and high tariffs in general? That doesn't mean targeted tariffs with policy-backed and incentivizing. That means overall global tariffs. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
Okay. All right. I'll ask you, I'll use part of my time to ask you, who attacked the U.S. troops at the gate? What organization was it?
It was the
Was it the Taliban?
Taliban, correct?
No, it wasn't. The Taliban was allegedly who was protecting us. What was the organization that attacked us? If you don't know, that's fine. I could tell you.
Those names. You answer the name.
ISIS-K. Does that sound familiar?
Yes, yes.
Where did ISIS-K come from, the people that attacked us there? Where were they?
I don't know.
They were jailed in Bagram Air Base.
Is that the ones that Trump let out 5,000 from Pakistan when he released 5,000 of those soldiers?
We're talking specifically about terrorists were jailed in Bagram Air Base, which was being defended. The argument you're making is that 2,500 troops weren't enough, implies that if the Taliban decided to attack us, clearly 2,500 troops would be enough to protect us from a handful of insurgents, which is what we ended up dealing with, which killed Americans. Those insurgents were freed by the Taliban, that we relied on defense. When we fled Bagram Air Base, we basically left it overnight. That's a Biden decision. That's what happened. Now, you talk about the after action report. There were all sorts of whistleblowers that came out from the military that said they were shocked that Biden basically had no plan. He just threw people in there and was like, overnight, like, bring them home. Let's do it. And they were shocked at the lack of planning that occurred. It would have been very simple to just keep Bagram secure, use that airspace to remove our allies, the civilians, the people from Afghanistan that were our allies, and then lastly bring back the troops that would be there to protecting. Instead, we did it in the inverse, which predictably led to disastrous results, including our allies hanging off the wheels of airplanes, dying as they flew away. We now know that despite the fact that the Harris-Biden administration told us they vetted the people that were coming, they didn't. They just took first come, first serve. This means that many of our allies in Afghanistan actually paid the ultimate price because they were left behind, and we brought in a bunch of unvetted people. Now we're told by the Harris-Biden intel agencies that one of those people planned a mass casualty event during Election Day of this year. These are the sort of policies that come with the ineptitude of Harris-Biden, the fact that they're more concerned with things around the world than the people of this country, and they're always making decisions that don't prioritize the people of this country and lead to disastrous results. And you're the one who brought up Afghanistan, which is hilarious. The same is true of their disastrous policies in Ukraine, Israel, etc. They fund both sides of the conflict in places like Israel. It exacerbates the situation. The idea of, can you name an isolationist country? I wish that Trump would be more isolationist, but he's not. He's still going to be involved in global markets. And I've already explained how the tariffs will be used as a negotiating tool. The last thing I'll say is you have a disagreement in saying the tariffs would harm the American people. That's different than what I'm saying about Harris-Biden, which you've conceded to, was that they intentionally prioritized the well-being of people around the world at the expense of the American people. Trump truly believes that his tariff policy will benefit the American people by bringing manufacturing and jobs back here. Many unions are for the first time voting for Trump for that very reason. If they think that Trump hates Americans and hates jobs, why would they be voting? So even if you feel you're right that this policy would result in Americans paying more, it's not an intentional ignoring of the American people. He's doing it because he feels he'll benefit it. And you've already conceded that at crucial moments when Americans were suffering, the first thing the Harris-Biden administration did was prioritize people around the world at the expense of Americans. You want to do closing statements?
Yeah, we can do closing.
All right. I'll give it, since I went first, you go first here. Fair with that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you can take as much time as you want, so I'm not going to bother with the timer. I mean, within reason, I can't be here for like 5 hours, but you get it.
I told you around 9 o'clock anyway, so I'm good with going a little bit over.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay. Yeah. And I'm going to add a little bit to that. So yes, basically, some of the aspects of the Afghanistan pullout was also the fact that with some of the negotiation, while negotiating with the Taliban, not the Afghan government, he was basically allowing Afghans to Taliban to be attacked by ISIS also. Also in the fact that he also released, I believe through Pakistan, 5,000 of those soldiers also. So, in regards to Trump and the policies that he has stated himself some of the negotiation tactics that he has actually done with, like I said, the NAFTA, which ended up being the USMCA. That was a bad deal. He's also looking to put major tariffs on 20%, maybe more, possibly more, at our expense to allegedly bring manufacturing back. But the problem is manufacturing doesn't come back that quick. It takes many years to find a manufacturing plant, build a manufacturing company, put down concrete, build the plant, put the power and hire the people and do all this. By the time that happens, some of these policies might change anyway, so you're not going to get major investment from other countries or different things to build these plants if the policies could change over the next 3 years, but by the time he's out of office. So this is some of the stuff that just doesn't happen. That they're going to basically move to where it is more optimal for manufacturing to happen. That is some of the policies that he shoots for. You can see that he doesn't understand tariffs. He obviously doesn't understand what it actually means to be a president of the United States, because he wants to actually run it like a dictatorship. He wants to tell companies what they can and can't do. He has basically the makings of a dictatorship. We hear this by the way he talks, by the way he brings different statements. He wants to be a protector and all this other aspect. Even the fact that wants to be loyalist. I'm not going to bring up the stuff that came up today because that can't be verified, and I don't know. He said, she said type stuff. So I'm not going to bring up the Hitler stuff. I have no say in that right now. But what he has said out of his own mouth, even to the fact that he wants to negotiate the Ukraine deal before any politicians even come into office. So before he even takes the office, he wants to start negotiating it with absolutely no input from the possible incoming Congress or senators that might be completely new, that might want some type of say in regards to that. But that's just the dictator that he is. These are the roles that he doesn't understand, to be able to create bipartisan laws rather than executive orders. He needs to be able to be a leader and work with both sides, not just one side. And he can't do that when you're constantly attacking everybody. I'm good.
Okay, thanks. I'll give my closing. So just to address a couple things there and then give my overarching closing thoughts, there's a couple things that he says there. I don't think he really handles the Afghanistan situation that well, because even though he wants to talk about this argument about ISIS-K coming from Pakistan, etc., and it attacked the Taliban, remember, even if that's true, then it was Biden that relied on the Taliban for security because he intentionally withdrew the troops that could have provided protection and Bagram Air Base, and they knew that the Taliban freed ISIS-K. So it's a more complicated situation than he's leading. I'll admit to pleading ignorance to exactly what he's talking about in Pakistan. I would have to read into it. But if it is true that ISIS-K was fighting the Taliban, why would the Taliban intentionally free ISIS-K? Then the United States, under Biden-Harris, rely on the Taliban for protection against ISIS-K, which predictably failed. And then the Harris-Biden administration bombed some of our allies, and which had children. It said it was ISIS-K, which we then found out was a lie. And then they brought a bunch of people in unvetted, which tried to commit an attack and atrocity, mass casualty during our elections. These sorts of things occur over and over. It's very similar to the situation we see in Iran, where we see that the Biden administration, and Harris was on board with this as well, again, was cool with sending resources to Iran. Now she says Iran's our biggest enemy. They freed up billions of dollars. They cheered up the Obama deal, which actually sent billions of dollars to Iran. They sent money that ended up freeing up other money because it was fungible for financing of Hamas, while at the same time financing Israel to commit a war against them. All the while, the United States people suffer more and more, and it seems like issues occur like the fires in Maui, or the train collapse in East Palestine, or things like the hurricanes that we see occurring, and American people are struggling. That's in addition to a litany of other problems, such as the problems with the border, the problems with inflation, etc. And it's always America last with these people. And he really has no answer. He conceded from the beginning that when it came to the first acts they took, they intentionally rescinded the executive orders, not for the benefit of the American people, but because there were a bunch of people with COVID and that were suffering through crime in Mexico, and they needed to bring those people in first. The entire reason we got on this whole area of conversation, starting with COVID, was my articulation that Harris is responsible or is in line with the policies of Joe Biden. It is a simple argument. The country was better under Trump economically. The country was better under Trump when it comes to the border. The country was better under Trump when it came to our energy policy. And it was better under Trump when it came to foreign policy. One thing that I will give Sage credit for is he at least tried to argue those policies, which I tip my cap to him, because most of the time these debates just become Trump's Hitler, Trump attacks democracy. I'd be happy to talk to him about that stuff at some day, but I really do tip my cap, because most people don't try to wade into this. So even though I think I'm correct on this, that is an admirable trait that you went with that. And so I I tip my cap in all sincerity, and I hope my audience appreciates that it's fun and informative to talk to people about these specific issues as opposed to the way the debates normally occur. So I do appreciate that part of it. A couple other things that I wanted to talk about that he said. He said that Trump's the one who wants to be a dictator and tell these companies, yeah, he's on one hand tiling them with these tariffs, the countries that are trying to flee the country, but the companies that are staying in the country, he wants to massively cut regulations as he did from 2016 to 2020, which actually is the exact opposite of telling businesses what to do. It is actually the Harris-Biden administration and the Democrats in general that want to massively increase regulations over and over. For all the talk of authoritarians and dictators, again, it was the Harris-Biden administration that tried to use their power to force people to take a drug against their will, even when the science showed that for many of those people, it was the wrong decision to make just medically, let alone for liberty concerning reasons. So it's actually the Democrats that have weaponized law enforcement, been authoritarian in many ways. The idea that it's Trump that's a dictator is nonsensical. They talk about Trump would lock up his opponents as they literally cheer for the Democrats, Harris and Biden, locking up their opponents. So I just think that that's interesting. And lastly, he said part of the dictatorship is immediately wanting to negotiate with Ukraine. Great. He should take the input of incoming senators, but I absolutely want someone, because I care about the loss of life in Ukraine and the loss of life from Russians, for that matter, or anyone else. I absolutely cheer the incoming future leader of the free world trying to sit down to the negotiating table and ending that terrible loss of life. That is one thing that I actually support the United States doing, and I actually did applaud Biden for actually withdrawing from Afghanistan because it's something that we should have done. The problem was the manner in which he did it was a disaster. So I don't think that makes Trump a dictator to want to immediately begin negotiations. Quite to the counter, I think that means Trump is someone who's actually concerned about these people and wants to have the most peaceful resolution possible. Lastly, he talks about how Trump doesn't understand some of his policies. Let me give a concession here. Certainly true at times that Trump, along with any presidential candidate, is oftentimes relying on experts and re-articulating policies that they may not be experts on. But anyone who wants to look at Trump vis-a-vis Kamala Harris and say who has a better understanding of policy will see that decision is quite clear. Kamala has no idea about any policy that she's talking about. She doesn't even know what her policies are. She has 180-degree flip-flops sometimes on an almost daily basis. For example, in 2020, where she almost called Joe Biden racist because he didn't support forced busing, only to come out a day later and say, oh, by the way, I'm against forced busing. She was for banning fracking. Now she's for fracking. She was for paying for transitions for inmates. Now she's against it. And the litany of list goes on and on and on. All she's good at is plagiarizing. Just like when she finally came out from her basement a day or two before the debate and finally put on her website her policies, they were basically cribbed exactly from Joe Biden's policy page, showing further that there's not going to be any difference between her and the Biden administration. So she's just an empty suit that represents an establishment that hasn't been working for people in this country for decades. And the truth is, when you look at their records, the American people aren't stupid. They are right. They know the country was in a better direction when Donald Trump was there. They know they could afford their groceries. They know that they were able to have a more peaceful world and there weren't these conflicts. They knew the border was more secure. And the idea that all these experts are saying, well, we told you last time that Trump would be Hitler and Trump would crash the economy and Trump would do this and lead us to World War III, and all of it turned out to be wrong. Now they're selling you that same pitch again. Ignore the records of Harris-Biden, ignore how Trump's record is better than that, and instead believe us that have been wrong so many times for the last 8 years, and we assure you that actually he'll be a dictator and he'll be bad for the country. I think the American people are smarter than that, and I think if this election comes down to the records of Trump versus Harris, that it's a clear-cut decision on almost every front that they should vote for Donald Trump for the reasons that I've outlined before. So. All right, man. Hey, let me just say, thank you so much for coming. I really enjoyed it. I know it got a little testy there, but I don't think it was personal, and I'm fine with it.
We fell into a groove there, to be honest, that it's something that I don't mind doing with you. You know what I'm saying? I think we fell into first debate for, for me going back and forth, I argue a lot, but I think we fell into a groove and I don't hold anything against you at all. Like
it's fun.
And yeah, it was a good time.
Do you think you schooled me?
Yeah, I think I schooled you in some aspects. 100%.
I disagree, but that's okay. One of the things about debates, it's always subjective. Like, here's the thing. Obviously, sometimes if you lose, but you're you, so you're going to like the arguments you're making. Why? Because you're you, right? So, like, that's...
So, correct. And like I said, was I 100... I'm not going to lie. I mean, I got no problem. So, was I 100% confident in debating? No. Am I an arrogant jerk sometimes? Yes. But
It didn't
either
bother
way,
me. I didn't find the arrogance to be that off-putting or anything like that. I will say, you should admit you fucked up royally with that thriftity thing.
well, at that point, I just said, yeah, I didn't care. Like, it was like it's like, what, at that point, I was like, you're not even letting me finish the damn sentence. So I just, yeah, sure, whatever.
Well, I'll tell you what was going on if you want. Oftentimes, what happens is you have to understand. I'm just some
Go ahead.
I'm just some redneck, right? Like, I'm a decent debater. I debate in college, but I'm basically just a run-of-the-mill redneck. Oftentimes what will happen is I'll debate people that are experts in a field. So I'll debate a professor of economics, or I'll debate a foreign policy expert that works at a think tank. And what they'll do is they use a bunch of terminology and stuff that the average person won't know. And they'll say, oh, do you know that? You know that? Or I'll debate a lawyer. Oh, you know that? You know that? And you're like, well, no. And what perceptually, whether you're trying to do this or not, what's happening with the audience is it makes a power imbalance where it's like, well, one side knows the terminology, so they just seem more intelligent than the other.
My power balance had to be there because you were a better debater. Because you see what I mean? So I knew that's where I went with that. That's why I went with that.
But I'm just explaining why I did this thriftity thing, right? Because you kept saying, do you know this? And I'm trying to talk through, like, I'm trying to understand what you're talking about. And you keep throwing these terms out. And so I said, no, I don't. And I kept being honest with you, like, I don't understand that. And then I wanted to try something. What if I threw out a term and pretended I was an expert? Would you say you knew it? And you said yes. And to me, the point that I'm trying to illustrate there is a lot of this terminology stuff is a red herring. And when I claim to be some sort of expert and know some term you don't, instead of being honest like I am, you're like, yeah, I know that. And I think that hurts you perceptually because
that was sarcasm for me because it's like I'm trying to finish the sentence here. So I'm like, yeah.
I didn't think I was interrupting that bad. And I will say, regardless of perception, it's the debate's over. Who cares, right? But I was legitimately trying to hear out your points when it came to, like, okay, this goods economy versus service economy. I'm trying to think through it like a normal person. And I wasn't trying to dominate the time. I'm just asking questions. And you're like, you're taking too much time. So, okay, then we'll move on. I think I was legitimately thinking maybe this is a strong point for you. But instead, you let me move on to a different subject because you criticized me, allowing you to clarify it.
I'm not gonna lie. Like, I do like. Here's one of the things too. Like, right. So I do want. Look, I reached out to you a couple times before and never really got a response.
I'm sorry. Can I say real quick? It was not intentional. Sometimes I just don't see messages, so that's not intentional.
Okay, so when I got on this time, what I didn't want to do was basically screw it where we can never do it again, right? So I didn't know. So this first time, I didn't know how you were going to take it and things. And I did see some of the Pisco stuff go awry sometimes, right? So it's like, man, I don't want to. I enjoy doing this, and this is something I want to continue to do. So it was one of those things too that I'm just like, okay, let it go, let him go. So it was one of those that I didn't know how hard I could push before. I didn't want it to go to chaos. Does that make sense?
I will say, I get that, right? Pisco and me know each other a little more, so sometimes it gets chaotic, but it's okay. Neither of us take it. But no, it's perfectly fine. And I've tried to commit myself. One of the things I think because I'm a pretty good debater, what happens is a lot of bigger left-wingers don't want to interact with me. And what I want to do is make sure that I'm available to people regardless of their audience size, because I do this as a hobby and I like debating. And so I don't want to burn bridges where it's like no one wants to come on because I'm just this incredible a-hole. So I'm really trying to make, I don't think I'm a big a-hole, but I can see how it comes off when I'm debating Destiny or Pisco. That's a different beast, right? Because we're both being a-holes to each other. So I thought this went fine. You're always going to expect a little chippiness, but I enjoyed it and would be willing to talk to you again. I would.
I didn't want to burn a bridge with you. So the first thing, I didn't want to come on and burn bridge and beat the dick. So it's like, like I said, so that was one that, and plus this is our first time ever meeting or talking. We talked never before this. So you didn't even know me, right? So I think now it's an aspect that we kind of feel each other out and we can kind of know where we go with it. But I do, if this is, because I know it's hard for me to find people to debate, right? And it's probably hard for you to find people to debate sometimes that it's new. Yeah. So to me, it's like, hey, you want to do something? Yeah, let's do it. And still be able to leave, like each other, right? Even though we don't agree, be able to leave liking each other. And that's kind of what I wanted to build with you, right?
No, I thought it was fine. Let me ask you real quick before you go.
I want to punch up. I want to find people that are better.
That's why I like debating people that are experts in the field, because to me that's what I want. Let me ask you one question before I let you go. Do you got any feelings on who's going to win? What is your gut at right now?
To be honest, and I'm going to say it out, and I know, and hear me out on this. I do believe that. I obviously don't like Trump rhetoric, and I do believe some of his policies are overbearing. Now, the problem is it's a 50-50 chance, and I've had this conversation before. You can believe what he says, and that's a possibility, and if you believe what he says, it's bad. or you can believe that he's just lying in the art of the deal thing. But the problem is you don't know. You know what I'm saying? So one of the issues that I have is he's been so negative for so long that I see a lot of people just wanting to switch because of the constant negativity. You know what I mean? That constant
Switch
just
from him, switch away from him.
switch away from him because of that. So the problem is, and I've had this discussion before with others, if Trump would have said, screw it, I'm not, and I think I've even heard him say his people tell him to stop being so mean or stop being so aggressive, right? I think that's hurting him. And I believe if he were to stop with that and focus on policies and selling to the people on a positive note, he'd be hammering it. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think, I sort of agree with you. I think to me, what it comes down to is you got the 40% that are baked in that are Trump no matter what, the 40% that are baked in that are never Trump no matter what. So what do you do with those other people? So one, you got to drive out your base, but then those people in the middle, I think in general, what most of those people are looking at is, I don't like Trump's personality, but in general, I think his policies were better. And so they're trying to weigh, is his personality so crappy and I'm so fearful that he would be a dictator that I'm not willing to vote for the policies that I think would be slightly better? Or are people saying, look, despite his character flaws, I'm going to take him because I'm more concerned about my pocketbook, about the border, etc. That's where the election's being held. And so the question is, how well can Trump modulate and stay on goal? I think Trump did a bad job in the debate with Kamala for that reason. That's why I tried to, every time I debate, I'm debating tomorrow night in Modern Day Debates about Trump versus Kamala.
Right.
I try, you can see from my opening statement, I'm trying to do what Trump should have done. Hey, it's a simple question. We already have a record. We have her 4 years. We have my 4 years. Which were better? That's it. That's the message that he needs to be sending. Instead, he allowed himself to get baited. But my crowd size are huge. And that doesn't do well for his personality. However, I think that he's done a great job of mitigating the sort of people that think he's bad with a lot of these sort of going out in these podcasts and getting out there. And Kamala's done a very bad job of selling herself to the American people and explaining exactly what she'll be. Makes debating for someone like you very difficult. Because the first question I'm able to ask is, okay, you say that Kamala would be different than Biden, but she directly said she can't think of anything different.
Right.
That's brutal.
And the other aspect that normally I get is, are you better under Trump or Biden? Well, the problem is that because of my business, I was better under Biden because even with inflation, I can raise my prices as prices go up. You're an employee. I don't know if you are, but if you're an employee, you can't, right? So that's a difficult one for some people to understand from that aspect.
Well, then there's other arguments you could make, such as the people are wrong, they're being misled, or the problems during Biden. This is an argument you're making. The problems during this administration were largely what came beforehand, right? But let me ask you, debate aside, like being honest, just between me and you, no one's watching. Do you think the average American's doing better under this administration than Trump's?
Do I think the average American's doing better? Well, they're going to say no, right?
Well, that's what they're going to say. Do you think they're right, though?
I think that it's a transition. So I think, no, they're not doing better at this point, but that's not because of the presidency. That's because of COVID.
Okay.
Right? COVID was a meteor that hit the planet that caused a lot of chaos, right? So the dinosaurs did way worse under the meteor that hit the planet, but other things came out of that ended up being us.
But do you think Trump would have won 2020 had COVID not hit?
Do I think if it didn't hit, do I think?
Because I think he would have. I'll just be honest. I think that what happened was COVID happened and he got the blame for all this stuff, and almost all of it was outside the scope of his blame. I'm not saying he acted. In fact, I have the exact opposite opinion of probably you and many of the Democrats. I think his mistakes were going too far with lockdowns, going too far with money printing, right? I think he should have done far less than that. But a lot of Democrats say, no, he should have went further. But the point I'm trying to make is, for you to, from my perspective or from a Trump supporter's perspective, there's sort of this like double standard where it's like, well, we have to forgive Harris Biden for a lot of this stuff because it was because of COVID. But the sole reason that Trump didn't win election was because of COVID. And no one gave him that benefit of the doubt. They didn't say, well, this is such a challenge. If we look at Trump's record outside of that, actually the country was pretty good. So, I think that's part of politics, baby. You get blamed for stuff that happens. Bush got blamed for Katrina. Biden got some sort of blame for Helene. You might be able to objectively look at that stuff and say, but what would you have had him do different? But that the people feel the way they feel,
No, and I agree, but I don't know. It's hard to say because COVID was such a major factor for me to blanket statement it. I don't like some of the policies that he did make in regards to OPEC, and he did do some deals with OPEC that ended up, like I said, oil did drop down. We did have, because I also do oil field stuff in regards to delivering oil tanks. We did have some
Where,
oil
are you
wells
in the east or the west of the country? Just say, you don't have to tell me the state.
Maine. I'm in Maine.
Oh, okay.
I'm in the state of Maine.
Oh,
Like,
okay. We deliver oversized, not me, but my father-in-law, sometimes to Vermont. So it's sort of in the region. Yeah.
Yeah, so I do I specialize in because everybody knows me, like fiberglass tanks and speak like 20-foot tall, 20-foot wide into either water treatment plants, or we just I've been a bunch down into Orange, Texas, into the chemical plant down there, Chevron, and stuff like that. I'm delivering filtration systems into the Samsung plant in Taylor, Texas. I've done the Mountain Pass rare earth minerals. Under Defense Production Act. That's all Defense Production Act because we're in a race with China. But that's so
China.
it's yeah, I know. I'm not a fan of China at all.
China,
I can't.
yeah.
I do like the fact that Trump did bring that to the forefront. The issue is China knew how to play us. And I believe China and like the FEMA stuff. Like the FEMA stuff is one of the things that pissed me off with Trump. I'm not going to lie. Because I'm ex-Coast Guard too. I used to be in I used to do law enforcement in the United States Coast Guard. So I've done search and rescue with them, and I've also worked with FEMA in regards to moving stuff. So when he said that FEMA's working, FEMA's a pass-through. I did watch your FEMA show, and some of the stuff that he's covering, that person knows one aspect of it, but might not know a couple other aspects. Like people expect FEMA to be like the UN. They don't own their own, bulldozers and dump trucks and tractor trailers. They outsource that. So FEMA actually works from the point that they have the right to stage. Then you have the event or the hurricane, the disaster. And then the local tribal cities go to the state, and then the state goes to FEMA, and then goes to the president, and then back down to FEMA. FEMA's just supposed to buy a pass-through. Like there's a login. Like you log in to FEMA in the internet, and I think I've done a screenshot where then I'll start to apply for your money. So what did piss me off was the fact that he said that money was diverted and pulled out of the disaster aspect budget of it.
Did he say that? I don't know that he said that. The guy I was talking to?
It was spent, that basically FEMA no longer has any money. That's one that I wish that he really wouldn't have said that, because now you have people.
I thought he was pretty reasonable, and I also thought, I got heat from lefties about talking about FEMA. I thought I was quite reasonable. I wasn't bringing the hammer down like Biden. I was trying to give both sides of it,
Trump said that. Trump said that.
Okay, not that dude I was talking to. Okay, my bad. I was going to say, you seem
but no, Trump said that. So that was one of the things that Trump pissed me off in saying that, because, like I said, when it comes to that type of stuff, you don't want to lie to people that are struggling. Plus, I know people like Will Berg, Cold Beer Confessional, that was literally in Irwin, Texas. That was the Tennessee place that is still considered unable to get to because of roads. But anyways, I think that's starting to toll on Trump, is because people are hearing this.
Well, I got to get moving, but I'll just say, so I understand where you're coming from, but if you had to pick right now, if you had to put money on it, who do you think's going to win?
I'm still thinking Harris, just because of that. I'm still thinking Harris.
We'll see if there's a new October surprise. I think that most of the good money's on, if the trends continue the way they are, she's going to have a difficult time. But I always think they got something in their back pocket, so we'll see.
Yeah, that's why I didn't want to bring up the Hitler type shit, because none of that's confirmed. And then I don't want to just throw shit out there like that. That's why I didn't want to get into that.
You're probably smart not to. I think I would have sounded pretty good in that. Sometimes things are too on the nose, right? Like, oh, we're losing with Hispanics. He said effing Mexican. Oh, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, but could he have said it? I don't know. He could have, but again, if there's no evidence, who knows? Right. And I didn't want to dive in. I did want to bring policies. I did want to do it. So I do appreciate you that type of aspect. And I appreciate you doing this debate. And I had a good time. And thank you for finally, quick.
Yeah, because I'm ready to take it to like Biden-Harris corruption as well. But I was like, as long as you're willing to talk policy, let's talk policy. So I enjoyed it. But thank you so much. I appreciate it. I'll make sure my audience has your channel and everything if they want to check you out. Do you have a time that you normally stream, or do you do
all day long? But I'm sitting here doing work at my other computer, so I just go during the day all the time. So you're welcome to jump in at any time on Discord if you're not busy doing something.
Okay. Okay, yeah, and I'll let people know, like, your channels, and can they find your Discord channel and stuff like that if they go to your YouTube channel?
Yeah, the Discord should be on there. When I stream, I drop it in the link. The YouTube is Sage Outcast, and the same thing on X, which I reached you on. And like I said, I
correct me if I'm wrong. Sometimes you allow callers to call in, even if they want to disagree with you, right?
Yeah, absolutely. They can click in.
So
like I said,
I think maybe a lot of my audience would like that. I think they could see that you're reasonable to talk to, and they would. A lot of people like talking to people they disagree with. So maybe you'll get some people to come over. Yeah.
And then I'm not gonna, like I said, I'm not gonna. I have a good time. Like I said, I wanted to have a good time with this, and I wanted to go back and forth, and like I said, I wanted to punch out.
All right, man. Thanks so much. I enjoyed it. I hope you have a good rest of your evening. We'll talk soon, I'm sure.
Thanks. I'll see you.
See you,
Bye.
All right, we'll do a little review of the debate here. Not a lot. I got to get to bed. Now, I will say that I had an offer after this to go on Aircraft Sparky's channel, which I would love to do. But man, I'm actually tired. I've got like 3 hours of sleep in the past 2 nights, and I know that my lovely wife's downstairs and my incredibly handsome, energetic son. So I would like to go down and see them a little. I haven't seen them since last Saturday, so I'm probably going to bail out of here pretty soon. Let's talk about the debate in general. First off, I enjoyed it. I really did, and I sincerely mean that I tip my cap that he was so willing to focus on policy. And it's a difficult road to hoe, to try to argue that the Harris-Biden administration is better than the Trump administration as far as their record when it comes to the issues like the economy and the border. I think he tries a clever trick right out of the gate in his opening statement where he's trying to say like, oh, well, Kamala's different. And then the very first question I ask, and you can see after the debate when I was like, dude, you're in a tight spot because Kamala herself admitted I wouldn't have done anything different. And he knows that. And he tries to spin it. And I'll give him credit as a debater, right, that he's trying to spin it, but he knows the truth. He knows that she's basically all but admitted, yeah, I would have done the same stuff he did, because I don't know if he agrees with me on this part, but the truth is that Kamala Harris is, just like Biden, isn't going to be running her administration. It would have been the same people running her administration, so she would have done the same things. That's what would have happened. Biden was an empty suit for different reasons because of his dementia. Kamala's an empty suit because she's always been. She's a plagiarist. She's fake. That's what she is, And so it starts down there, and then the strategy that he tried to employ was basically saying he tried to deflect and be like, well, what'd you want them to do? They had to focus on COVID. That's a big mistake. That's a strategic mistake, because if you make an argument like that, well, they had to do what they did because of this crisis that was ongoing, and they had to focus. The problem is you better hope that I'm unable to talk about other areas of focus. And so when one of the first things they do is brag, we rescinded these executive orders, et cetera, and then he digs a hole further, and it was the weakest part of his argument, the whole debate, that I was able to use for offense, was when he basically admits, well, yeah, of course, at that moment, they had to help those people because there was crime in Mexico, and they were sick in Mexico. And that's basically the thrust of the entire Trump argument against Harris, is that she's not America first. I mean, for God's sakes, that's Trump's tagline, America first. Or, well, that's Nick Fuente's tagline. But dealing with America great again, focusing on the people of the United States. And so to have him concede within the first 10 minutes of the debate, during this pandemic, while people were locked down, we brought in people that we knew had COVID, not to help America, but to help Mexico. That's not good. That ends up harming him throughout the course of the debate. How much of that is him just debating versus things that he really believes? I don't know. It's irrelevant to me because I like to test my ideas against. And if, for example, when I debated Andrew Wilson and he was pretending to be a Kamala supporter, it doesn't make it any different for the sake that the arguments exist and you must argue against them. So I don't know. It seemed a little bit afterwards that he was more charitable to sort of, things weren't so good under Biden-Harris than he was during the debate. But it's irrelevant. I don't think it's bad faith or anything like that, or something that's out of bounds to do it. Nonetheless, and I think that he employed a strategy that tried to focus on a specific area of knowledge, and I'm assuming he's running a company. He's probably does well at what he does, running logistics, and so he's using some knowledge he has in that field to make what I think are bigger, grandiose claims to sort of defend in an all-encompassing way the policies that came forth because of that. And I think that I did a pretty good job of articulating, look, I understand to an audience it might sound like you know what you're talking about, and maybe you do on certain areas, but that wouldn't explain why we lock down children. And you could quickly see sort of cracks in the argument when he says things like, well, actually inflation increased because people were just staying at home because they couldn't go anywhere, so they're spending money because they're at home. And then the very next argument is, but if we sent them back to work, imagine how much more they would have spent. You could see that there's a lot of tension in arguments throughout the debate like that. Now, two more things to say specifically on this area of the debate. I can't say that I'm innocent, that I don't interrupt. I do. I didn't think it was too egregious. I thought we tried to, plow forward on that. We were both interrupting a little. We're getting a little chippy with each other. That's fine. But I like that style of debate when you could ask questions back and forth. The problem with the timer is there's no direct interaction. It's just a 2-minute speech versus a 2-minute speech versus a 2-minute speech. I like to be able to ask, well, wait a minute. Who was it that attacked? It wasn't the Taliban, right? It was ISIS-K. Like, I like that style of debate more. So I think it's regrettable that we had to go to the timer. And it's very regrettable that I don't understand at all where he was coming from when he was upset that I was dominating the time when I literally was making as best as possible a good faith effort to try to figure out what he was saying. And there's two reasons for that. One, maybe he was frustrated because he assumes that everyone knows the jargon as well as he does, and so he didn't want to repeat himself. Or secondly, he saw that I was potentially going to point out flaws in his argument once it was broken down in a way that an average person could understand. Either way, the idea that he was upset that I was giving him an opportunity to clarify his answer and asking questions, I don't know, seemed... And then lastly, the counter-thriftity argument. Big mistake. It was that's a pretty brutal moment. I got to get in touch with my boy Black Elk and see if he'll clip that. That's a bad look. For those that missed it, he kept talking about all these terms, going, "Do you know that? Do you know that?" And one of the things that happens when you're doing that is it's giving the perception that you have an area of expertise that's somehow superior to the person that you're talking to. And now I'm not going to say I never did that. I did it. I think I was more polite way, but I said, do you know who attacked? If you don't know, that's cool. It was ISIS-K. But he's doing it over and over again. I bet you didn't know that. You didn't know that, which is fine. I'm not like personally offended, but I get what he's doing. I get perceptually what he's trying to do to look like he's the expert that's talking and I'm just trying to understand. The reality is just because I might not know specific terms doesn't mean that I can't logically think through the scenario that's being put forth. And that's what I'm trying to do, to get away from the jargon and to get to the sort of, well, what are we talking about specifically? And so when he keeps asking me that, in my head I say, I need to come up with a word and ask if he knows that, because I was 60% sure that he would say, yeah, and he did. And so I said, what about the Fed policy of counter-thriftity? Clearly what you're talking about, like, that's so simple. Clearly you understand that. And he talks over me for a second. I'm like, I'm just asking a yes/no question. I answered your question. I said, no, I don't know your term, but you understand the concepts of counter-thriftity through the Fed policy, right? And he's like, yeah. Ooh. And I'm like, yeah, I made that term up. And then he immediately tries to go like, well, I was just being sarcastic. I said yes about everything. Well, if that's true, then you're not really engaged in a good faith back and forth. And notice when he asked me, I'm like, no, I don't know that term. So yeah, we definitely need a counter-thriftity. That's the best word I could come up with. Counter-thrift. That's kind of funny too. I was like, I got to come up with a term that sounds somewhat believable, but a little technical. And I came up with counter-thriftity. So, but he knows all about it, he said. I think it's funny. I'm not trying to shit on him like anything over the line, but you have to admit that's funny. When you're sitting there and you're talking like some technical expert, oh, this term and this term and this term, and someone goes, yeah, but you don't know about this term. Of course I do. Yeah, I made that up. The rest of the policies, I think the debate was very similar, where he was in a debate mode and he's doing his best to sort of spin a story. And it's a difficult position he's in to be able to spin why the policies that we all see, the outcomes that we see regarding things like energy prices, regarding things like the border, etc. They're so much worse under Harris Biden. So it's difficult to try to defend those policies. And so you got to try to spin a story. And I think he's admirably attempting. But I think that it comes across to people that are listening to could see that I'm actually engaging and pointing out contradictions in that story and pointing out that a lot of this is just predictions and it's philosophy. For example, it's difficult to find people that academically write about the dangers of mass illegal immigration, because the libertarian sort of think tanks like the immigration because they think it provides cheap labor for businesses, and the lefties want the people coming in because they basically want the votes and to change demographics, etc. So it's difficult to find, and oftentimes you'll hear them, oh, all the numbers say X and blah, blah, blah. And then you're like, but then how come if they're so great that as soon as we move illegals into a town like Martha's Vineyard, they can't wait to kick them out? We're told that, the small border towns need to accept it. The places like in my state, Charleroi, Pennsylvania, they got to accept all of these people. But not us in Aspen, not us in Martha's Vineyard. No, 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 no. We don't have the resources. How not? You're incredibly wealthy. Our areas are poor. No, 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 no. So it does come across when he's like going off and he's like talking, oh, well, you know, this happens, then this happens, then this happens, then this happens. I think that, you know, most of the people that are watching could see those are all predictive, and many of the same people that are predicting those things said the exact same type of things with Trump's policies in 2016 and said the inverse when it came to Harris-Biden policies from 2020 to 2024, and they were wrong over and over again. So if we look at the actual records of what occurred, I think it's clear to see that on these issues, Trump's far superior than Kamala Harris. So that's basically it. Now, I am going to raid Aircraft Sparky. I apologize, Sparky, that I'm not going to actually join your show this evening. Do I see you, Sparky? Are you not here? You're not streaming? Well, that's a bummer. Let me check YouTube, maybe? Does he have a YouTube channel? I don't see him on Twitch. Hope he didn't get banned or something. Oh, he starts at 10 o'clock. Shit. Yeah, he's not started yet. What I'm going to do is post the Twitch page. If you don't have Twitch, consider just for today going to it and checking out my friend Aircraft Spark. He's going to have a great show, and he's going to be dealing a lot with this sort of Trump likes Hitler story that came out. And he's going to be, I talked to him. He's going to be playing some of my shorts where I dealt with this topic. I think it's going to be very worthwhile. Oh, there he is. He's not live right now. He's in there. So please, please, please check him out. Listen, I think if I could sell Aircraft Sparky to you a moment, I think objectively, Sparky's probably not as good of a debater as me. But that's not the only content that you're looking for. I think Sparky is tremendously likable, speaks in a way that people can understand, and at a speed people can understand. It's not like super fast like me. And I think he's hilarious, like way funnier. His show's way more fun and funny than my show. And thank you so much, Cowboy. I appreciate the subscription. I really think you'll enjoy his show. And he always has some interesting co-hosts and guests on. So check it out, man. I think that you'll like him if you like my show. I think you really would. So it's worth checking out. And like I said, even give him a chance tonight. He's going to be talking about a topic that I would really like to talk about if I wasn't just dead tired. And I think that it's a topic that you're all going to appreciate. And he's going to have a lot of good to say on it. So consider checking him out tonight. Check that link out there. I want to read my super chats before I leave. So I apologize to anyone that donated and I didn't read it yet, but I am going to get to that if I could find out where my video is. No, that's wrong. How do I just get to my channel? View your channel. There we go. Jeez, I'm an idiot. Consider checking him out. All right. Super chats. Da 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 da. All right. Wow. Did all right. John Beard, thanks so much for the gifted membership. I will have membership content coming out starting after the election. We're bouncing around some ideas of what the special membership content's going to be, but I think you guys will enjoy it. Galil Dowdy, thanks so much for the 5 gifted memberships. Always appreciate it, man. Garrett Link for $5 said, had a surplus of $60 billion due to Trump's tariffs. The $28 billion we used to pay farmers due to the tariffs were paid by the tariffs and then some. Great point. Wish I would have read that during the debate. Now, some of that, I obviously don't know the ins and outs of that, but assuming that's true, it would have been a great point to make. So thanks for that, Garrett. Intel Wild for $2 says, whoop his ass, Rob. I tried. I hope I did you all. Joseph for $2 says, counter thrifted, you sly dog. Thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed that move. John Ruck for $2 says, just support, hit the like button, share this stream. Thank you. Number 12 Use for $5 says, he looks just like an old Axl Rose mixed with Garth from Wayne's World. I don't know if that's designed to be an insult or not, but if someone said that about me, I would take that as a compliment. Brock Van Wagner, always a fan. You're always incredibly generous. For $20 says, the fact remains, none of this even had to happen. The overall disaster to the COVID response was exacerbated by the fact that they doubled down on it when it was proven not to work. Exactly true. John Kell for $5 says, Rob GPT just went down from 80% on notice to 90% on notice after debating this expert. A lot of quotes there, too. And Intel Wild for $2 says, Rob, put this guy on notice. Thank you, guys. You guys are the best. You're hilarious. You're incredibly generous. I am making an effort to grow my channel in various ways, and I am going to be putting a lot of the money that I get from this channel back into the channel, whether it be paying people to help me edit, paying for new equipment, trying to get to some real life events and stuff that's been cost prohibitive to me in the past. So I'm really making an effort. You can check out my YouTube channel where I'm trying to put shorts up on a daily basis. And I even have some people that I'm sort of paying now that are going to try to put some professional level shorts up. That's going to start in a few days here. So they're going to be putting at least one of those professional ones up every other day. And then I'm going to keep putting my, redneck, me just hold my phone short. I'm going to just keep trying to put those up on a daily basis. So last thing I'll say is I did appreciate the debate with Sage. I want to thank him. Overall, I thought that even though I thought I did very well, of course I'm biased. I'll leave that to your judgment. I thought that he did okay. For someone who doesn't really do these debate spaces a lot, I thought that there's certainly been far worse efforts that I see. I will ask, I don't know how to put a poll up. Maybe I can figure that out. Can I put a poll? And we'll ask real quick who you thought won the debate. Is there a way to do a poll? Start a poll. All right. Now, this is cheating. This is sort of self-edification because I know my audience is most likely to say me. By the way, this comfy thing is incredibly comfortable, but it is a little warm. So there we go. Let's start the poll. Da-da-da-da. If you're not on YouTube, you don't get to participate in the poll. Stop the poll. I'm up 100%. Yeah, I enjoyed him. Like, seriously, I thought that I won pretty handedly. Obviously, people could disagree. That's fine. But as far as enjoyment, I enjoyed that debate thoroughly. My wife's currently eating a leftover burrito in her Snuggie. I'm not hungry. I'm not feeling the greatest, or I would. Thanks, Mr. Wright. So I'm not going to be eating anything. My wife voted for Sage. Thanks, wife. I went in with 92%. I don't know how many people. Can I check how many? There we go. Now we're getting some more for Sage. Good deal. 25 votes. 11% for Sage. 10% at 30. So one of those is my wife. You liked his visor. Good point. The audience wants that. I hope you enjoy the content. I do. I do try to have it be. I try to have it be entertaining for the audience. So I know sometimes the audience wants me to yell and scream. I didn't think it was warranted tonight. And I am trying to make an effort, particularly with people that are up and coming, like newer streamers or new to the debate sphere. I don't want to seem too intimidating, like that I'm too big of an a-hole or anything like that. So I hope that he would be willing to come back, and other people that watched would be willing to come on and debate me. Because if the big lefties are going to ignore me, well, then the least we could do is get some fresh faces in for some debates. So, yeah, I thought he did okay, but. Yeah, I'm up 91%. That's pretty good. I won, but rad robot click Sage. That's fair. There's probably someone who thinks I lost, but click me just because they're a fan of me. Thanks, Sparky. I appreciate it, man. I probably won't because I'm so tired. My guess is I'm going to go downstairs and start to watch a show with my wife and my son and probably be asleep within 10 minutes. I'm so tired you can start to feel like your eyelids feel like they're drooping down your face. He did much better than Elder Drazi. Absolutely. Elder Drazi, for all of the bluster and the talk that Elder Drazi did about how he read more than anyone on COVID, my goodness. Like, I'll be honest, when I think it was a close debate, or even in the times that I think that I lost certain points or stuff, I'm biased, of course, but I'll say if I think that I thought this guy did okay. Elder Drazi was wretched, and I'm not saying that to be mean to him. He was just bad. And for someone that bragged like that, my goodness. Oh, on the topic that he wanted. Okay, So I thought that was Any more voting? We're up to 45. We'll leave it up a couple more minutes. Drazi's been raging over Andrew lately. Oh, Andrew's he's a good foil for all those people. I beat them substantively on the facts, and then Andrew beats them philosophically. And I seem like a pretty decent, nice person. Andrew, they can't stand. They think he's an a-hole. It's a good contradiction. I think the styles work well together. That's why when me and Andrew are on the same side in a debate, it's so challenging for the other side because they have to be able to deal with the philosophy angle that Andrew's going to bring and the fact that his intensity is going to be through the roof. And then I'm able to be calm and be like, listen, you're not dealing with the argument. It makes it difficult. I know it's a little bit cheating, but it's good. We both understand our strengths. There we go. We got 50 votes. All right. We'll end her up here. 90. The poll ends. Rob wins. Yay. 92%. I should create a smug emoji. Thank you guys, though. I thought that's the first time I ever did a poll. I just like to get an idea. I thought that I did very well there, too. Again, frustrated that we had to go with the clock, but I'm glad that we did because I think it would have been better than just constantly bickering back and forth over the time. So tomorrow night around 8 p.m., I'm supposed to be doing a debate on modern day debate. Same topic. The way this debate came about, I'll find the gentleman's name. I feel bad that another person that I'm unfamiliar with, but let me make sure I get their name correct in case you want to check out their stuff. Classy Neurotic. Classy Neurotic wanted to do a one-on-one debate on Trump versus Kamala. He said that we should try to go through modern day debates. Cool by me. Modern day debates, James from Modern Day Debates said they want it to be a 2-on-2. I said, fine by me. It could be 1-on-4. I don't care. They could, if it wants to be a me versus the world, that's fine. I don't care. But I think they've settled on 2-on-2. There is a partner for Classy, who I don't know who that is. And allegedly there is a partner they've picked out for me, who I also don't know, but that partner hasn't confirmed. So James said we're 75% on for tomorrow at 8 p.m. Eastern time. So the plan is I plan on debating if I have a partner fine. Generously, Aircraft Sparky said if I need a replacement, if the other guy can't go, he would join in, which would be great. Me and Sparky work very well together. So that would be a good debate. But yeah, I don't know anything about the gentleman I'm debating, and I don't even know who his partner is. In fact, I assume it's a man. I don't know. I didn't look. So it could be a lady. Classy Neurotic. So a similar debate. We'll see if it stays policy oriented. My guess is that it'll probably get into a lot of the Trump's January 6th, and he's a threat to democracy, and he's Hitler, and blah, 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 blah. Nah, Tristan, I don't give a shit about that. The ideal partner for me, I'll tell you who the ideal partner for me would be, like, my dog that just doesn't say anything. Yeah, I get it, Tristan, but I don't think my opponent picked his partner either, so it's fair game. All right, thank you so much. Please, 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 one more time, I'll put that out there. Aircraft Sparky's Twitch channel. Please check him out. He's going to start at 10 p.m. Eastern, so about 14 minutes. Go get a drink, use the restroom, come back to your device. Sparky's going to be playing some video, at least one of mine. He's going to be talking about this Atlantic story that's absolute garbage about Trump saying that Hitler's good, blah, 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 blah. The Prawn says, yeah, I remember. Didn't I respond to you, Prawn says? I remember reading that. Did I not respond? I thought you said that you'd be interested in setting up a debate, and I said that was fine, and then I don't remember if you ever responded after that. Send me another message, and I'll reach out to you. Now, listen, I have to be honest. I can't confirm any debate, like every debate, because I'm limited in my time. But I was looking for a debate Friday during the day. If you got a debate to set up and someone's willing to go Friday, I'm game. I have to be done streaming by about 3 p.m. Eastern, though. And then next week, probably good for a debate Wednesday or Thursday. And then I'm going to have to get into getting prepared for my 24-hour stream that's going to be on November 2nd, though. Oh, you got back to me with more details. Sounds good. All right, I'll check that out. Thanks so much, everyone. Please, please, please go check out Aircraft Sparky's show tonight, starting in 15 minutes. I believe he starts at 10. Thanks so much, everyone. I appreciate all of you. Thanks to Sage Outcast. Thanks to everyone that donated. And thanks to everyone that engaged in the chat or just watched my beautiful face and my beautiful snuggie do that debate. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm trying to line up more debates for you all, and trying to increase my content here. So thanks so much, everyone. As always, have a good one.